Chapter 97. A bolt of lightning struck down. Because of the paddle in Lei Xingfeng's hand, the lightning struck Lei Xingfeng's body. In an instant, the enormous force caused Lei Xingfeng to tremble violently. At this moment, he finally understood how strong the force was. A thought flashed through his mind. Was he too reckless? With Lei Xingfeng's strength, it was impossible for him to fight against the lightning. He was an elder thunderstorm. He hadn't even condensed a single true ring. His body was still filled with the lightning attribute Lunli, which was the lowest level of power. How could he resist the craziest lightning in nature? In an instant, Lei Xingfeng collapsed onto the deck. The lightning seemed to be able to kill him in an instant. Suddenly, a dot of light appeared on top of Lei Xingfeng's head. That was Lei Xingfeng's body, Lei Yin. Lei Yin immediately opened his eyes wide and began to madly absorb the lightning. Lei Xingfeng barely managed to stay awake. He immediately sat down cross-legged and began to absorb and control Lei Yin. Although the boat had lost its power, the original inertia was still there. The boat continued to move forward. It continued to move forward until it reached the violent lightning zone. Only then did it gradually stop and float on the water. Lei Yin protected Lei Xingfeng, but it also attracted the lightning in the sky. In the next moment, two bolts of lightning struck Lei Yin. The deafening sound of thunder directly exploded above Lei Xingfeng's head, causing him to feel dizzy. This was a dense area of lightning. Even if Exine Feng was sitting there, there was still a lightning stamp above his head, turning him into a lightning rod, attracting lightning bolts one after another. Even if he wanted to dodge, there was no way for him to do so. He had originally planned to slowly absorb the lightning bolts in the outskirts of the thunderstorm. But now there was a huge accident. With Lei Yin's protection, Lei Xingfeng finally recovered. He looked at Lei Yin above him with lingering fear and immediately immersed himself in cultivation. This cultivation immediately made him feel different. The large amount of lightning caused his cultivation to increase rapidly. His Lunli was also quickly converted into Luan-Yinli. This rapid conversion of power had already surpassed the realm of Mill-Wheel Master even before he had purposely pursued it. He now had the power to condense a true ring. The moment Lei Xingfeng sat down to cultivate, he immediately understood. This time, there was no doubt about his advancement. As long as he cultivated according to the steps, condensing a true ring was a simple matter. The secret to condensing a true ring was Yinli. In other words, Lunli began to convert into Luan-Yinli. Just a little bit was needed to condense a true ring. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't just absorb a little bit of Yinli, but a lot of it. In the Star Python records, the symbol of a true ring was that after converting a little bit of Yinli, one could quickly condense a true ring. This was a true ring, a true Mill-Wheel Master. Then, one could quickly increase Lunli. This Lunli's nature was much stronger than a Mill-Wheel Master's Lunli. It had more of the characteristics of Luan-Yinli, but it was still Lunli and couldn't reach the true power of Luan-Yinli. Second true ring meant that more Lunli was converted into Luan-Yinli. Its nature was still Lunli, but this Lunli was closer to Luan-Yinli. This was the so-called true Mill-Wheel Master. Once one became a true Mill-Wheel Master, one could attempt to condense 3 true ring bodies. Once the majority of Lunli was converted into Luan-Yinli, one could condense 3 true ring bodies and become a true Luan-Yinli Master. At this point, a true master would be a truly powerful true master. As the amount of Luan-Yinli increased, one could condense 4 true ring bodies. All the way to 5 true ring bodies were within the range of Luan-Yinli. And the condensation of 6 true ring bodies was the conversion of Luan-Yinli into Yinli. Once successful, one would become a true Yin Master. In this world, a true Yin Master was considered an extremely powerful expert. They could do whatever they wanted, but once they reached the true Yin Master level, they would have higher goals. When Lei Xingfeng converted his first Luan-Yinli, his first true ring body had already started to condense. But out of his expectations, the large amount of Lunli in his body was quickly converted into Luan-Yinli. Due to the large amount of energy that Lei Yin was constantly transferring, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stop training. He instinctively felt that if he stopped, he would explode. The first true ring body was quickly condensing, and within a few minutes, Lei Xingfeng had already successfully advanced to the first true ring body, true mill wheel. What happened next made Lei Xingfeng even more terrified. He couldn't stop training, and his cultivation continued to increase. Under the influence of Lei Yin, the Lunli in his body was madly converted into Luaninli. In an instant, he broke through again. Before he could even react, his second true ring body had already condensed into true mill wheel. This speed of advancement didn't make Lei Xingfeng happy. Instead, it made him very afraid. He didn't know how to stop and didn't know what to do. Without an expert to guide him, he was truly a little confused. Half of his Lunli had already been converted into Luan Yinli. In other words, if he converted a little more, he would break through to the third true ring body, becoming a true Luanin master. Lei Xingfeng began to tremble from the bottom of his heart. He could only pray that the thunderstorm would stop, or else he didn't know what the consequences would be. His cultivation continued to increase bit by bit. Lei Xingfeng had already purposely slowed down. He turned around and walked to the side of the ship. Reaching into the water, countless electric currents shot into the water. In a few breaths, a large number of stunned fish floated up. He picked a big fish and only took a few pieces of meat without any bones. Turning around, he went back to the cabin and marinated the meat. After waiting for a while, when the rice was almost done, he threw the meat into the pot and added some salted vegetables before sitting down cross-legged. It was a simple meal that could fill his stomach. Lei Xingfeng didn't have a choice. He didn't have Fatty Jin's methods and didn't want to waste too much time. A big pot of rice only made Lei Xingfeng half full. He couldn't do anything about it. The cultivators in this world were too abnormal. Their bodies needed a lot of food. If a cultivator appeared in an ordinary family, they could really eat a lot of food. Lei Xingfeng thought back. Along the way, he had found a lot of road signs and made some markings. He thought as he rode, I hope I don't get lost. I hope I don't get lost. If it was a mountainous area, I wouldn't be afraid no matter how hard I ran. But this is water. There are very few places that can be marked. I hope those markings are still there. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Lei Xingfeng was lost. Lei Xingfeng had never gotten lost in his life. The key was that when he was chasing after the thunderstorm, he was crazily rowing the boat. At that time, his attention was completely focused on the thunderstorm. He didn't care about the direction. The place with the thunderstorm was the direction he wanted to go. But the thunderstorm could move. Around him were patches of reeds. Xian Feng knew that he had gone the wrong way. On his way here, he had never seen such a dense patch of reeds. After going deep into the reed marshes, Lei Xingfeng was completely confused. There were waterways all around. The reed marshes cut the lake into countless pieces. The inside of the lake was crisscrossed with dense waterways. There were countless forks. He tried to go back, but when he saw that there were 7 to 8 waterways at each fork, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. He didn't have a map to check. Lei Xingfeng felt that there was no way out. The reed marshes here were 6 to 7 meters high. Each reed marshes cover an area of about 10 to 100 square meters. The waterways were as numerous as the hair on a cow. It was impossible to tell the direction. Especially in the heavy rain, there was only reed marshes and water in front of him. Chapter 98. 3 days later, Lei Xingfeng helplessly looked at the dense reed marshes. He had been moving forward, but even now, he was still surrounded by the reed marshes. This was a natural maze. If he could fly into the air, he might be able to find a way out. But now it was all up to luck. If he wanted to get out, it would be extremely difficult. 6 days, after wandering around the reed marshes for 6 whole days, Lei Xingfeng's heart was boiling with anger. He had no choice but to suppress his anger and sit quietly, not daring to cultivate. Luckily, there was a lot of rice on the boat and various other food. Adding on the countless fish and prawns in the lake, eating was not a problem, so he still had the energy to move around. Sitting at the front of the boat, letting the rain pour on his body, Lei Xingfeng gradually calmed down. He realized that he was becoming more and more violent. He knew that this was a side effect of his martial arts. Luckily, He was an extremely peaceful person in his previous life. That was why he was able to effectively control his emotions after his cultivation increased. In his previous life, whenever he was extremely frustrated, Phone would like to sit cross-legged in meditation, emptying his mind, and every time it had a good effect. Of course, that wasn't training, but a way to calm his mind. He didn't expect it to be useful in this life, and very useful at that. Once he meditated, the berserkland Ainley would gradually calm down, as if he was washing the sand, finding the gold, and discarding the sand. After meditating a few times, Lei Xingfeng gained a lot of benefits. It also made him realize the importance of meditating. In these 6 days, whenever he was in an extremely violent and bloodthirsty mood, the desire to kill would rise and fall. At that time, he would start meditating, slowly calming himself down, and slowly train his Lun Ainley. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng became addicted to the feeling of meditating. Every time he finished meditating, he felt as if he was reborn. Lei Xingfeng did not know that he had escaped a great calamity. If he successfully returned and was unable to control his violent emotions, it was very likely that under some provocation, he would go berserk. With his strength, slaughtering the entire market would not be a problem at all. No one would be able to stop him. In the past, Elder Thunderstorm was like this. He would easily kill until rivers of blood flowed, making his enemies all over the world. That was why Phone decided to live in this reed marsh for a period of time and slowly search for a way out. Even if he couldn't find one, he didn't need to fret, as there would be a day when he would be able to leave. When he made this decision, his heart was calm, and he even felt a sense of joy. Even he himself found it strange that he would feel happy. At this point, Phone wasn't in a rush. Every time he reached a fork in the road, he would quietly make a mark to indicate the path he had taken. The moment he passed by it again, he would know that he had come back. His daily task was to cultivate, meditate, make marks, catch fish, and cook. It was a very simple life, but it made his Lun Ainley more and more pure. Its nature was also more and more inclined towards Ainley. He did not purposely pursue advancement. Every day, there would be new discoveries, and every day there would be joy in his heart. However, Lei Xingfeng gradually understood a principle. Since he cultivated the lightning attribute, then the berserk side was unavoidable. Everything he was doing now was to control and suppress. Now, relying on the meditation from his previous life, he could solve this problem very well. But when he advanced again, meditation might not be able to solve this problem. After living in the reed marshes for more than 30 days, Lei Xingfeng not only stabilized his cultivation, but also reached the edge of advancing to the 4th true ring body. This was not something he pursued, but something he achieved naturally. The rice was almost finished. Feng had been very careful these past few days, eating mostly fish and prawns, eating very little rice. Although he was no longer impatient, he still couldn't find a way out. His heart was still a little anxious. When would he be able to find a way out? These 2 days, it was rare for the sky to be clear. Moreover, there was sunlight. The surroundings were quiet, and a few waterbirds flew by. Lei Xingfeng lay on the bow of the boat, basking in the warm sunlight. He was still thinking of a way to get out. In reality, he knew that unless he happened to get out, he would not know even if he reached the edge of the reed marshes. After living on the cold and damp lake for so long, he finally had sunlight. Feeling warm and comfortable, Phone unknowingly fell asleep. The boat floated with the current. His sleep was very deep. All of his fatigue, nervousness, and uneasiness were all gone. This sleep was the best sleep he had ever had in his life. And this sleep lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. When he opened his eyes, he suddenly found his boat stuck in a clump of reeds. And through this clump of reeds, there was a boundless lake in front of him. Lei Xingfeng was stunned for a long time. He rubbed his eyes hard and looked back at the wall of reeds. Only then did he understand that he had actually gotten out of the reed marshes. He had no idea how he got out. Motherf asterisk cur. What is this? How'd I get out like this? But this doesn't make sense. Lei Xingfeng thought as he looked at the stuck boat. He suddenly came to his senses and could not help but slap himself. Stupid. I can get out just by following the current. King messed around for dozens of days. Sitting at the front of the boat, Lei Xingfeng's face was full of helplessness. He began to meditate because he felt that he was going to explode in anger again. He touched his face. This slap was not light. When he finished meditating and calmed down, he looked up and was immediately shocked. The lake was densely packed with small boats. He did not know who they were, but they were actually confronting each other on the lake. Among them, there were two small boats that were charging at each other. There were hundreds of boats on each side, filling the entire lake. With one look, he knew that this was a battle between two powers. After a short observation, Lei Xingfeng lost interest. These were all ordinary people, not cultivators. A battle between ordinary people was not interesting to him. In any case, Lei Xingfeng did not dare to enter the reed marshes again. This place was too scary. Although there were no fierce beasts and no direct danger, this method of surrounding people was extremely terrifying. If it was not for the fact that he mysteriously ran out, Lei Xingfeng estimated that he would have to at least advance to a true ring body and be able to fly before he could successfully escape. Looking back at the reed marshes and then at the two sides in front of him, Lei Xingfeng easily decided to walk from the front and not turn back. Suddenly, there was the sound of drums, followed by loud shouts. The boats from both sides began to charge forward. There were also the sounds of steel crossbows being fired. Lei Xingfeng did not think that these ordinary people would be equipped with such killing weapons. Steel crossbows could even threaten low-level cultivators. Even Thousand Lun masters would not dare to face the arrows directly. Only Wan Luanshe could rely on his condensed ring armor to block the arrows. Thousand Lun masters' Lunli armors were slightly weaker. Following the sound of the steel crossbows being fired, there was a wave of miserable cries. It was obvious that someone had been shot. The battle between ordinary people was actually not any worse than a cultivator's battle. It was also very cruel. After the boats collided, other than colliding, the sides of the boats would lean against each other and attack each other with weapons. Harpoons, steel spears, shields, and bows. The sounds of killing filled the entire lake. Lei Xingfeng was still thinking about whether or not to directly rush out. He did not think that both sides would have backup. Dozens of large boats and over 1,000 small boats appeared from two different directions. Xian Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. This number was a bit frightening. Each side had a few dozen large boats and a few thousand small boats. The entire lake was filled with boats at a glance. It was a majestic sight. The only difference between a normal person's battle and a practitioner's battle was the number of people. Once a normal person started a battle, the number of people would be in the tens of thousands. If a small boat had 10 combatants and 2 boatmen, just the small boats alone would have 20,000 people. The battle cries got louder and louder. There were even more steel crossbows on the large boats, shooting out even more arrows. There were also bows and arrows shooting nonstop. The sky was filled with arrows dancing in the air. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. He did not know what to do. If he went out now, he would definitely be attacked. With his current temper, once he was attacked, he would definitely not hesitate to counterattack. This battle was definitely inexplicable. He did not want to join in. Suddenly, there was a long whistle. A figure jumped out from the large boat and pounced towards the opposite side. Lei Xingfeng's eyes immediately squinted. He realized that this was a cultivator. It should be a Thousand Lun master. His body flashed with the light of a ring armor. If his body was fast enough and agile enough, he could definitely dodge most of the arrows. Immediately after, another person rushed out from the large boat and pounced towards the opponent. That person was also a Thousand Lun master. Lei Xingfeng sighed and thought to himself, as expected, there are still cultivators in the organization. To be able to organize tens of thousands of normal people into a battle, in this world, only cultivators could do it. Small-scale battles did not count. For this kind of large-scale battle, it was unimaginable that there were no cultivators in it. The cultivators in this world were equivalent to nobles. They had a high status and had the natural right to manage the normal people. This was a right given by strength. If one wanted to take away this right, then they had to be stronger. Lei Xingfeng watched silently. He knew that this was not a suitable time to appear. Even if he was in a hurry to go back, he could only wait patiently. The normal people's battle was also extremely cruel. Screams, roars, and the sound of steel crossbows piercing through the air. The entire lake seemed to be boiling. The reeds were startled by a large group of water birds. Among them, there were many wild ducks and other flying birds. Boom, boom, boom. Countless balls of fire appeared and hit the small boats, causing a huge fire. This was caused by a cultivator. According to Lei Xingfeng's judgment, this was definitely a Wanluan Shi, a fire attribute Wanluan Shi. Suddenly, the lake water surged, flipping over tens of small boats. That was the work of the water attribute Wanluan Shi. Lei Xingfeng secretly calculated how many cultivators there were. Until now, he only saw Wanluan Shi taking action. He did not see any mill wheel masters. However, he guessed that Wanluan Shi was just a hired thug at the front. There must be other mill wheel masters around. Maybe there was a true ring mill wheel master holding the fort. Suddenly, a few small boats came towards his position. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly and thought to himself, "Are you afraid that it's an ambush? I only have one boat. Your eyesight is really sharp to be able to discover me from so far away." He increased his vigilance. Chapter 99. Seeing that the small boats were getting closer, more than a dozen smaller boats appeared behind them. The most interesting thing was that both sides had sent small boats to investigate. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to retreat or advance. He didn't want to have a conflict with the other party because it wouldn't bring him any benefits. Moreover, he didn't have any grudges with them. However, some things couldn't be avoided just because you wanted to. Lei Xingfeng looked back at his boat and immediately understood why he was discovered. The mast on the boat was much taller than the reeds. With such an obvious feature, it was impossible for others not to notice it. Even if he didn't put up a sail, he would still be conspicuous. A small boat quickly approached. There were 5 or 6 people standing at the bow. They were all ordinary people. However, Lei Xingfeng discovered that they were all fully armed. Every one of them was holding a harpoon or a steel spear. There were even steel shields erected on the boat. Every one of them looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Lei Xingfeng sat cross-legged at the bow. He helplessly looked at the small boat that was speeding towards him. He thought to himself, "This conflict will be difficult to avoid." He didn't know why, but he had a feeling of eagerness in his heart. He had a very bloodthirsty impulse. However, he didn't pay much attention to the change in his heart. He coldly looked at the small boat approaching. That small boat carefully approached. This world was too dangerous. Some people couldn't be offended, so even if they had the numbers advantage, they didn't dare to act recklessly. When they saw Xian Feng at the bow of the boat, they all let out a sigh of relief. From his appearance, he was a young man. The only suspicious thing was that he didn't look like a fisherman. His skin was very white. Definitely not a fisherman who had been exposed to the sun every day. No fisherman would have such good skin. Seeing a young man sitting cross-legged at the bow, everyone relaxed. There was no ambush, no large number of boats. There was only one small boat and one person. This didn't make them nervous. The people who were holding up their shields couldn't help but lower their shields. The people who were holding bows also lowered their bows. Their eyes turned to a middle-aged man. He held a steel harpoon in his hand. He glanced at Lei Xingfeng and then looked at everyone. Only then did he step forward and say, "Let me ask." The middle-aged man walked to the bow and shouted at Lei Xingfeng, who was not far away. "Hey, little guy, are you alone? Where are the adults in your family?" A few people holding harpoons whispered, "Hey, that's a new boat. Brand new. That's right, it's a new boat. The paint is also freshly applied. It's very clean, very beautiful. What a strange little fellow. He actually has a new boat all by himself. Mother Kerr. I worked until I was almost 30 years old before I got my first boat, and it was even a second-hand broken boat. This little guy has a new boat at such a young age. Why don't we snatch this boat?" Lei Xingfeng's lips curled into a mocking smile. They actually wanted to snatch the ship. At this moment, he suddenly understood that even ordinary people would be violent and greedy when they saw someone weaker than them. They might even be more excessive than cultivators. The middle-aged man saw that Lei Xingfeng did not answer and only smiled, as if he did not hear what he said. He doubtfully muttered to himself, "Deaf?" Lei Xingfeng was instantly enraged. He said, "You're the one who's deaf. You're all deaf." Those people were in an uproar. Many of them said, "Where did this little bastard come from? How dare he speak like that? He doesn't want to live anymore." A few more boats came from behind. On one of the boats, a strong man shouted, "Hey, old Chun, what's going on? The battle is intense. How can we waste so much time? Who's hiding in the reed marshes?" The middle-aged man with the surname Chun turned around and said, "A boat, a young man, no one else." The strong man shouted, "All of you, go back and capture that young man. That boat. Why don't you go up and row it over here?" Lei Xingfeng heard it clearly. He slowly stood up and said, "I don't think I've offended you, right? Why do you want to capture me? Why do you want to steal my boat?" The strong man was less than 100 meters away from Lei Xingfeng, so he could also hear Lei Xingfeng's words. He said, This is the first time I've seen such a white and tender boy. Old Chun, go and grab him for me. Sir just happens to be lacking a servant. This boy is not bad." Lei Xingfeng's anger suddenly rose to the top of his head. In an instant, his face turned red. It was difficult for him to calm down. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "Reckless fool." The group of people suddenly roared with laughter. Someone said loudly, "Chu Lauda, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to this little guy?" Ha! Lei Xingfeng was stunned by the obscenities. Even in his previous life, he had never heard such words. At that moment, he began to wonder how these ordinary people had the guts to speak like this. He said faintly, "I hope you don't regret it." Chu Lauda did not think too much. In fact, if he thought a little, he should know how unreasonable Lei Xingfeng was here. A young man with a new boat in the lake during the rainy season. No matter what, he was not an ordinary person. However, he was blinded by his own strength. He thought that bullying a child would not make him feel any psychological burden. Even if he resisted, what could he do? Just kill him. This was a battlefield. The death of a child was not a big deal. There was no need to dispose of the body. Just throw it into the lake, and there would naturally be hunting blade, fish eating it clean. Chu Lauda shouted, "Go get some people and capture him. This little guy's mouth is quite stubborn." "Regret? Regret my ass. Haha, I regret messing with you. Capture him." Someone laughed. "Chu Lauda, you're too bad. You're so fierce to a child. You have to be gentler." Ha! Ha 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 ha. Ping! That person laughed halfway and stopped abruptly. Lei Xingfeng held the black bow and said faintly, "I will treat you very gently." Ping! Ping! Ping ping ping. Like a storm, the sound of metal clashing rang out. 3 arrows per second. To Lei Xingfeng, it was not a burden at all. In his hidden Luan space, there were at least 100 arrows. When an arrow was shot out, it would not only take down one person, it would often pierce through 2 or even 3 people. Some people raised their shields in panic, but the thick wooden shields could not block the arrows at all. They were directly shot through by the steel arrows. The people hiding behind were also shot through by the arrows. Chu Lauda watched his subordinates fall one by one. He was stunned by Lei Xingfeng's ruthless killing methods. In a few breaths, 7 or 8 people had died, and Lei Xingfeng did not have any signs of stopping. He just calmly shot arrow after arrow. Chun Lauda was nailed to the deck by an arrow. That arrow pierced through his shoulder. It was not that Lei Xingfeng's aim was bad, but he did not plan to kill him. The others were not so lucky. Whether they were hiding in the cabin or standing on the boat, they were all coldly killed by Lei Xingfeng. Originally, he did not plan to interfere, but after being humiliated by this group of strange people, Lei Xingfeng completely changed his mind. In less than a minute, the people on the dozens of boats were all killed by Lei Xingfeng's black bow. He only left a few people, including Chu Lauda, Chun Lauda, and 2 people who were the dirtiest at the beginning. Lei Xingfeng had always hoped to remain calm and kill less. But in this kind of situation, he did not mind killing. He was being bullied to the point of being calm. If he did not make a move now, he would be a coward. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had never been a coward. It was fine if he did not make a move, but once he did, Lei Xingfeng was a little unable to control himself. There were few boats that fell behind. When they saw Lei Xingfeng start to kill, they hurriedly fled to the distant fleet. Lei Xingfeng shot the people on the deck from afar. However, his attention was still on Chu Laoda and Chun Laoda. He hated these two people very much. These two people were the ones who forced him to make a move. He continuously jumped a few times and was already on Chun Laoda's boat. He grabbed onto Chu Laoda's shoulder. His fingers had already dug into his flesh. He directly locked onto Chu Laoda's collarbone and forcefully pulled him down from the deck. Chu Laoda howled as he jumped onto Chu Laoda's boat. He casually threw Chun Laoda to the bow of the boat and said indifferently, "You are Chu Laoda." Chu Laoda's eyes were about to pop out. Only now did he realize that he had caused a disaster. However, he still had some hope because there were practitioners in the fleet that he was on. He tried his best to calm down and said, "Brat, you provoked us. You are finished. When our masters come, you will definitely not be able to live." Lei Xingfeng grinned and said, "Oh, very good. Your masters will definitely appreciate your ability to provoke enemies." With a flick of his finger, an electric arc flew out. Chu Laoda began to jump up. This thing was definitely more powerful than the electric batons in his previous life. It hit Chu Laoda until his whole body trembled. It was only now that Chu Laoda realized that Lei Xingfeng was also a practitioner. Lei Xingfeng did not let go of any of the people who had said nasty things just now. He especially hated this kind of people who only knew how to talk big and had a vicious heart. He threw them one by one onto Chu Laoda's boat. He flipped his wrist and took out a long spear. He said, "I like to kill those people with nasty mouths." With a thrust of the spear, it pierced one of the people's mouth. The wide tip of the spear only rotated a little, but that person's tongue and teeth were all broken. After dealing with a few people in a row, he pierced Chu Laoda's thigh with the spear and said, "I am very curious. Do I look like I am easy to bully?" Chu Laoda's face was pale and his whole body trembled. He could not speak properly and said, I don't. It hurts. Lei Xingfeng said, "I hate people like you. Can't you be a little tougher? Why are you screaming like a ghost?" He forcefully twisted the steel spear, frowned and said, I hope you don't regret it. Do you regret it?" Chu Laoda was about to cry. He howled, regret. It hurts. It hurts. Chapter 100. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm too lazy to ask who you are, but since you've provoked me, then I'll make sure you won't regret it." At this time, a large ship and 7 or 8 smaller ships sailed over. The small ships had steel crossbows on them, while the large ship had a few people pointing at Lei Xingfeng's ship. Chu Laoda arched his body. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die immediately. When he saw the large ship approaching, he gritted his teeth and said, Our people are here. Brat, you better let me go." Lei Xingfeng's spear pierced through Chu Laoda's other leg. He said, "Oh, if I don't let you go, then what?" Roar. Boss Chu howled miserably. This spear had almost driven him crazy. His 2 legs had been pierced twice by the spear. It was almost certain that his 2 legs were completely done for. If no cultivator appeared to save him, he would definitely be crippled. "Stop!" A shout came from afar. Lei Xingfeng was immediately unhappy. He was already extremely angry from being involved in the battle. He shouted, "What are you playing at? Scram!" He knocked an arrow on his bow and shot it over. The middle-aged man who shouted at the ship's bow had a red light flash in his hand. He actually reached out to grab the arrow. Lei Xingfeng laughed coldly and shot out another arrow. This time, he added a bit of Luan Yinli to it. The arrowhead flashed with an extremely thin arc of electricity. If one didn't pay attention, they definitely wouldn't be able to see it. The middle-aged man grabbed the arrow, but he also retreated. He was shocked by the power of the opponent's arrow. He paid more attention to it. Immediately after, another arrow was shot. He reached out to grab it again. Pooh! The arrow's speed suddenly increased, and the steel arrow suddenly emitted a dazzling light. The man's face immediately turned pale, and he subconsciously used his arm to block in front of his eyes. The arrow instantly passed through his arm and hit his head piercing his forehead in an instant. Even though he had activated the ring armor with all his strength, he still couldn't block the attack of the steel arrow. With a plop, he fell to the ground, twitched a few times, and died at the bow of the ship. Suddenly, the ship was in chaos. Awan Lunshur was actually shot to death by an arrow. This was simply inconceivable. Suddenly, a wave of drums rang out. It was the sound of the drums calling for help. Lei Xingfeng put away his black bow and said, "You want me to stop? I want you to completely shut up. Mother of Asterisker, a bunch of bastards, messing with me for no reason. I hate these bastards the most. I want all of you to die. If you mess with me again, don't blame me for killing you." His heart was getting more and more irritable. He really wanted to disregard everything and fight. Until now, he was still trying to control himself, but his ability to control himself was getting weaker and weaker. Killing Awan Lunshur with a single arrow made the other party vigilant. Moreover, they were on the verge of going crazy. Awan Lunshur in a small place was a high-end fighting force. Now that he was killed, no matter which side it was, this hatred would definitely not be easily resolved. Hundreds of small boats and 6 or 7 large ships gathered together and headed towards Lei Xingfeng's location. Chu Laoda's mouth was full of blood. He gritted his teeth and said, "You're finished. You're finished." He clearly saw that he knew this Wan Lunshur. He was one of the organizers this time. Even he was killed. He understood in his heart that this time, they had formed a death grudge with this youth. His heart suddenly relaxed. Even if he was killed, he would not feel uneasy because this would not affect his family. He also understood in his heart that this time, he was the one who caused this disaster. This disaster, after Lei Xingfeng killed the Wan Lunshur, was no longer important. In any case, they would not rest until one of them was dead. It did not matter who caused this disaster. Lei Xingfeng's heart was anxious. He stabbed him to death with his spear and said, "I'm finished. Your King finished first." Chun Laoda felt a chill in his heart. He did not dare to say a word. He just lay on the ground and pretended to be dead. Lei Xingfeng's attention was all focused on the fleet that was rapidly approaching from afar. There were hundreds of large boats. They looked really mighty and imposing. The killing intent in his heart grew stronger and stronger. His eyes became brighter and brighter. His eyes even flashed with traces of silver lightning. An extreme desire surged into his heart. He wanted to kill. He wanted to vent. Chun Laoda was about to go crazy. He kept wailing in his heart. What kind of monster did they provoke? Lei Xingfeng's eyes shined as he stared into the distance. He kept his black bow and spear. He continuously jumped and landed on a small boat. This was the boat closest to the front. For a moment, he forgot about dealing with Chun Laoda. He looked forward to the fleet approaching. 3 true ring bodies, true Luan Yin master. With Lei Xingfeng's strength, it was definitely a little scary, especially in such a small place, a remote and unknown place. In this kind of place, a Wan Lunshur could do whatever he wanted. Lei Xingfeng did not know what kind of status a true Luni master would have. In fact, even if Lei Xingfeng was a mill-wheel master, with his strength as a lightning cultivator, he had the strength to contend against a true mill-wheel master with 1 true ring body. Now it was different. He wanted to see how much strength he could display. This made him very eager to battle. When the fleet was within 100 meters, with an order, countless crossbows were fired. The crossbow bolts rained down. This wave of attack was purely to test the waters. Lei Xingfeng did not care at all. This level of attack could not break through his defense. A mill-wheel master's secret ring armor was enough to block it. He was a true Luan Yin master. This level of attack was nothing to him. He clasped his hands behind his back and watched as the crossbow bolts rained down. A faint silver light flickered, and the crossbow bolts were all deflected. Like a rock in the water, all the crossbow bolts slid past it in an instant. With a series of clanging sounds, most of the crossbow bolts nailed to the deck of the ship. The deck of the ship was densely covered with crossbow bolts. Lei Xingfeng waited patiently. He wanted to wait for the fleet to get closer so that he could kill his way onto it. Wave after wave of crossbow bolts rained down as the fleet gradually drew closer. When they were about 10 meters away, Lei Xingfeng could see the shocked faces of the other party. So many crossbow bolts, but not a single one was able to harm him. These people revealed an extremely shocked expression. Lei Xingfeng saw a few practitioners gathered at the bow of a large ship. They were all staring at Lei Xingfeng, as if trying to estimate Lei Xingfeng's strength. The crossbow bolts stopped firing. They knew that this level of attack was completely useless. It was purely a waste of crossbow bolts. Lei Xingfeng suddenly roared and leapt out, crashing onto a large ship. The practitioners on the ship could not help but retreat a few steps, opening up an empty space. There were two Wan Luan Shi, a millwheel master, and an old man behind them. Lei Xingfeng immediately saw that this person had a true ring body. He was actually a true millwheel master. It was no wonder that the other party was so confident. A true millwheel master was practically an invincible existence in this small place. Lei Xingfeng stared at the person and said, "You are their leader?" He did not care about the two Wan Lun Shi and the millwheel master at the side. The old man slowly stepped forward. His expression was grave. Lei Xingfeng had killed a Wan Luan Shi, but he could not see through Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. Just this point alone made him very cautious. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Wan Yuzhou, true millwheel master." It was a very formal self-introduction. This was because the other party was around the same level as himself, which was why he was so serious. The other three practitioners were surprised. One must know that Wan Yuzhou was their secret weapon. Unless there was no other choice, he would not show himself. Lei Xingfeng knew that this battle would be difficult. The other party could not see through his cultivation, but used this method to test him. He said indifferently, "Lei Xingfeng, true Luan Yin master." This was the rule agreed upon by the cultivators. Basically, everyone knew about it and would not refuse to introduce themselves because of this. Moreover, this was often a probing method used by lower-level cultivators to prevent things from getting out of hand. Wan Yuzhou had a look of disbelief. What a joke! A young man was actually a true Lunin master. This was impossible, but the person in front of him was one. He could not even see through him. The other three cultivators no longer had shocked expressions on their faces. Instead, they were completely dumbfounded. Wan Yuzhou probed, "You were invited by them?" He pointed at the fleet that was still fighting. Xian Feng shook his head no. He straightforwardly denied it. He indeed wasn't on the opposing side. He was provoked by others. Wan Yuzhou carefully asked, "Then why did you attack us?" Lei Xingfeng was enraged when he heard this. He said, "I attacked you? All right, I even caught one alive. You can ask him yourself." Wan Yuzhou immediately sent people over. The only one alive was Chun Laoda. Fortunately, Wan Yuzhou and the others came quickly. Otherwise, he would have been killed by Lei Xingfeng. Chun Laoda was brought over by a Wan Luan Shi. He was only shot by an arrow, and his life was not in danger. Wan Yuzhou asked, "What's going on?" Lei Xingfeng sneered, "You don't know what is going on?" He looked at the other with an indifferent expression. The situation was very simple. Chun Laodao explained it clearly in a few words. Wan Yuzhou's face revealed an awkward expression. He said in a deep voice, "Since he wasn't an ambush and wasn't a threat to us, why did we offend him? If Lei Xingfeng was a normal person, then offending him wouldn't be a big deal. But he was a true Luanyin master, an expert that condensed 3 true ring bodies. This was a fatal mistake." Chun Laodao was tongue-tied. He didn't know how to reply. Wan Yuzhou raised his harpoon and nailed him to the boat. He then said sincerely, "Since he offended you, then he deserved to die. I apologize." Killing Chun Laodao cleanly, Lei Xingfeng felt a chill in his heart. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng seemed to have felt something. He looked up at the sky and said casually, "All right, forget it. You guys fight. I'm just a passerby." He turned and left. He directly boarded his boat and sailed towards the reed marsh. Apart from being dumbstruck, Wan Yuzhou thought to himself, "Strange, why did he leave so straightforwardly?" Chapter 101. Wan Yuzhou watched as Lei Xingfeng left. He didn't dare to stop him, but his heart was relieved. Originally, as long as Lei Xingfeng left, he would have agreed to pay a certain price. But he couldn't understand how a youngster could have such strength. A true Luanine master like him. As a true mill wheel with one true ring body, how could he endure it? He felt that he had lived for so many years. He couldn't even compare to a child. Lei Xingfeng rode the boat like an arrow, quickly entering the reed marsh. However, this time he didn't go deeper, but hit at the edge of the reed marsh. It wasn't because he was afraid of Wan Yuzhou, but because he felt a terrifying aura that threatened him. So he didn't have the mood to continue entangling with Wan Yuzhou. Since he didn't have anything to lose, it was better to leave. Even if he hit at the side and peeked, it was still safer than standing on the boat. One must know that a truly powerful expert would be able to understand the general situation with just a glance. With his strength as a true Luanine master, he was like a bright lamp. Wan Yuzhou didn't have such a sensitive feeling. After all, he was a true Millwell master. If his strength didn't reach a certain level, he wouldn't be able to sense this kind of threat. He watched as Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh, and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He still had some doubts in his heart. This reed marsh was very famous in the area, known as the Great Lost Marsh. If one accidentally entered it, very few people would be able to come out alive. Countless fishermen died inside. Thus this reed marsh was a forbidden area that no one dared to enter. When Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh, Wan Yuzhou couldn't help but laugh coldly. He wouldn't warn him. It would be best if he died inside. This little brat was too much of a threat to him. "Let's go," Wan Yuzhou ordered. They were still in the middle of a battle, and Lei Xingfeng had appeared, forcing them to send out their core experts to deal with the problem. This had weakened their strength to a dangerous level. He had to bring his men back quickly. The fleet immediately turned back. After Lei Xingfeng entered the reed marsh, he did not enter the fork in the road. Instead, he parked the fishing boat on the side of the waterway and set down a rock to anchor the boat to the side of the reed marsh. He directly entered the reed marsh. He wanted to figure out what was giving him such a strong sense of danger. Through the gaps in the reed marshes, one could clearly see the battlefield on the lake. The battle was still in full swing, and the sounds of killing could be heard. Black smoke billowed, and that was the smoke from the burning boats. There was a deep layer of mud in the reeds, but the crisscrossing roots of the reeds were enough to support Lei Xingfeng's weight. He watched the battle quietly. The sense of threat grew stronger and stronger. He carefully sank his body into the mud, only exposing his head. His eyes constantly swept across the water surface. He couldn't figure out who could pose such a great threat. He even had the feeling that he was facing Ai. When Ai was fighting, the aura he emitted was a little threatening. When a practitioner reached a certain level, their senses would become extremely sensitive. Of course, if the opponent was too strong, they would not be able to sense it. As the battle became more and more brutal, more and more practitioners joined in. The addition of these practitioners was a disaster for normal people. Very quickly, the practitioners from both sides started fighting. To be able to stop the practitioners, one had to be a practitioner himself. Wan Luanshi against Wan Luanshi, Millwheel Master against Millwheel Master. Only the true masters did not come out. An extremely sharp whistling sound faintly came from extremely far away in the sky. Because Lei Xingfeng was holding his breath, he could hear it very clearly. But the people fighting on the water surface could not hear it, and continued fighting. The whistling sound became louder and louder. Lei Xingfeng also reacted. This was the sound of someone flying at high speed in the sky. In his mind, anyone who could fly was definitely a powerful expert. Even if he condensed 3 true ring bodies and became a true Luanine master, it was still impossible for him to fly. It could be imagined that those who could fly were much stronger than him. A red line appeared in the west. In just a few seconds, the whistling sound suddenly became louder. This time, the people fighting on the lake all looked up, and the battle gradually weakened. Some people cried out, some took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, and some looked at the sky in a daze. Among them, the practitioners all stopped fighting. They knew better than normal people what kind of existence could fly in the sky. The red line suddenly stopped, and a human figure appeared. Just like that, he suddenly stopped in the air, causing the people on the lake to cry out in surprise. Another light appeared, This time, it was a golden line. Lei Xingfeng was very clear that the red line was of the fire attribute, and the golden line was of the earth attribute. These two people's strength was terrifyingly high. To be able to fly, Lei Xingfeng began to guess their strength. With his strength, he couldn't see through their cultivation level, but he had a basic judgment. Any practitioner who could fly must have at least 6 true ring bodies. In other words, these two were at least true Yin masters. A true Yin master was already a high-level martial artist. Normal practitioners would have to look up to experts of this level. They could easily take care of a small to medium-sized sect without worrying about revenge. Lei Xingfeng remained motionless in the mud, peeking through the reeds. He suppressed his qi to the minimum, hoping that the other party wouldn't discover him. The golden line paused in the sky, and a human figure appeared. The two figures stopped, and without saying a word, both of them attacked at the same time. More accurately, the fire attribute practitioner attacked the earth attribute practitioner. A fireball the size of a soccer ball flew out. The earth attribute practitioner clenched his fist slightly, as if to demonstrate his strength. He raised his fist, and suddenly a golden shield appeared in front of his fist. Boom! The scarlet fireball hit the shield, causing a shocking explosion. The earth attribute practitioner was directly sent flying towards the reeds where Lei Xingfeng was hiding. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but curse in his heart. This attack caused the fireball to explode, causing countless small sparks to fly and fall. The people below didn't care. The sparks were too small, not worth paying attention to. Who would have thought that when the sparks landed on the boats, regardless of whether they were big or small, they would immediately burst into flames? Moreover, those flames couldn't be extinguished. What a joke! Unless one used Enli to destroy the flames, there was no way to extinguish them. When the flames landed on the surface of the lake, they also burst into flames, burning on the surface of the water. In an instant, countless people danced in the flames. The remaining people saw that they couldn't extinguish the flames on the boats, so they all jumped into the lake. In a moment, only a few boats were left, the rest were completely annihilated. At least 1,000 people were burned to death. Just the aftermath alone was enough to make both sides suffer. Lei Xingfeng squinted his eyes and observed. The fire attribute practitioner was a young woman. Her appearance couldn't be seen clearly. After all, she was high up in the sky, and her entire body was red. She wore a red dress, like a fairy floating in the air. The other earth attribute practitioner was a young woman wearing golden armor. Her appearance also couldn't be seen clearly. Even though Lei Xingfeng had 3 true ring bodies and was a true Luanine master, he still couldn't see clearly. The only thing he could feel was that this wasn't an old person, but a young one. The two didn't even care about the people below, and wantonly started a huge battle. Lei Xingfeng was shocked to the extreme. He could instantly tell that these were 2 women, and 2 young women at that. What he couldn't understand was how these 2 women could be so strong, to the point that it was boundless. The two continued to exchange blows, causing the area below to become even wider. Even the area where Lei Xingfeng was affected. A few sparks fell, forcing Lei Xingfeng to immediately jump into the lake and swim along the reed marsh. In an instant, the reed marsh that he was hiding in was set ablaze. The wind borrowed the strength of the fire, and the fire helped the wind. In a few breaths, the fire spread out. Lei Xingfeng looked back and knew that his boat was finished. With this kind of fire, the boat wouldn't be able to escape and would soon be engulfed by the fire. As the two of them fought, they began to curse each other. Their voices were extremely loud and clear. Qi Meiyun, that's enough. Big bastard. If you're not afraid of master's punishment, then continue to fight. Yin Yao, you little bastard. I won't let you go. The one in the red dress was Yin Yao, and the woman in the armor was Qi Meiyun. Lei Xingfeng felt the heat on his back, and his heart was extremely unhappy. He was also shocked. If these two were already so abnormal, then how terrifying would the master behind them be? The two exchanged a few more blows, and then chased each other away. Below them, cries of pain could be heard. No matter which side it was, they had suffered heavy losses, including cultivators. Low-level cultivators were caught in the fire, and even if they jumped into the water, they would still be burned alive. There was no way for them to escape. Lei Xingfeng swam to the entrance of the burning reed, and, as expected, he saw that his boat was also on fire. Shaking his head slightly, Lei Xingfeng could only go over and put away the paddle. This thing was made of pure steel, so it was still intact. Lei Xingfeng's gaze was focused on the remaining boats. One must know that the total number of boats from both sides was close to 3,000, and only a few hundred boats were left. There were more than 30,000 people, and only a few thousand were left. The casualties were really heavy. However, Exine Feng didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy. This group of people had left a bad impression on him from the start, so he didn't need to be courteous. He quickly swam towards the remaining small boats, his speed as fast as a giant fish, drawing a white line on the lake as he quickly approached the small boats. After a while, Lei Xingfeng saw a small boat. He immediately jumped out of the water and landed on the bow of the boat. On this small boat, there were more than 100 people, and all of them were like drowned rats, squeezed together. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone jump." The people on the boat were instantly enraged, and all of their anger was directed at Lei Xingfeng. Each of them held their weapons and charged over. Chapter 102. Lei Xingfeng stomped his foot, and an electric arc spread out like a net, covering the entire boat in an instant. Since the boat was filled with water and everyone climbed out of the water, the electric current was transmitted smoothly. Lei Xingfeng did not want to kill anyone. He just released an extremely ordinary electric current. Everyone enjoyed the electric shock, and the entire boat felt as if they had fallen into icy water. Everyone began to tremble violently, and those who were close to the boat even let out miserable cries. Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "Do you want to jump in yourselves? Or do you want me to help you?" Those people jumped into the lake one by one, their faces pale. They were not stupid. They could tell at a glance that this person was a cultivator, and a powerful one at that. The commotion immediately alerted the others, and two small boats quickly came over. A cultivator stood at the bow of the boat, and as soon as he got close, he saw Lei Xingfeng clearly. His face suddenly changed, and he said, "Go back, all of you go back." Wan Yuzhou saw Lei Xingfeng and knew that things were not good. It was just a small boat, and he already knew that Lei Xingfeng's boat must have been burned, so he came over to snatch the boat. Lei Xingfeng nodded. This Wan Yuzhou was quite tactful, and since this was the case, he would not find fault with him. He came to the stern of the boat, kicked away the original paddle, and took out his own steel paddle and installed it at the stern of the boat, planning to leave immediately. The whistling sound came from afar again. This time, even Lei Xingfeng could not help but curse. He put away the paddle and dove into the water. Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao appeared again, and it was another earth-shattering battle. What fell were not sparks, but large amounts of flames. This time, even Lei Xingfeng had to use Lei Yin to protect himself. The entire lake was like a layer of oil, and the flames were about to boil the water. All the remaining boats were burned, including the one that Lei Xingfeng had snatched. Not a single boat was left, and as for those people, none of them escaped. Lei Xingfeng saw a person desperately struggling, and he realized that person was Wan Yuzhou, the only one left. Slowly, Wan Yuzhou stopped struggling and gradually turned into ashes. Only then did the flames extinguish, and Lei Xingfeng felt a chill in his heart. "Enough! You two little girls, are you done yet?" A shout came from the air. Lei Xingfeng looked up, and an old man and a young woman appeared. The old man's long beard fluttered in the wind. He was dressed in white and had a head full of white hair. He was standing on a strange beast. The woman beside him was dressed in a light green dress. She giggled and said, "All right, don't be angry. It's not like you don't know that they are two little enemies." He, Qi Meiyun, and Yin Yao saluted in the air. Master's wife." Their voices sounded like they were acting coquettishly. Lei Xingfeng stared at them, dumbfounded. He could not see through their cultivation, and he could not even feel their existence. However, he could feel the monstrous ferocity of the monster. When he looked up, The monster's two eyes were also staring at him. Lei Xingfeng felt like he was hit by a heavy hammer, and he almost spat out blood. Lei Yin automatically protected its master, blocking the invisible impact. There's still one alive. The old man looked around in shock, and this one glance shocked him again. He said, Xiao Yun, bring the child up, don't scare him. Qi Mei Yun was the armored woman, a cultivator of the earth element. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, she was at least a true Yin master with 6 true ring bodies. Catching him would be easier than catching a chicken, so he didn't struggle at all, and was directly brought up onto the monster. The first impression the old man gave him was that he was unfathomable. His face was expressionless, and other than his white hair, his skin was similar to a young man's. The woman beside him was extremely beautiful and had a heroic aura. She had sharp eyebrows, phoenix eyes, and naturally red lips. She had a natural smile on her face, which meant that even if she didn't smile, she would still smile. The 2 female disciples were also extremely beautiful. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly to himself. These beauties, just from the aftermath of the battle, killed 30,000 people and burned 3,000 ships. The old man stared at Lei Xingfeng, and after a while, he said, Who is your master? Lei Xingfeng didn't have a master, and he knew that his Yi had enemies all over the world. How could he be willing to tell the truth? He said, I don't have a master. The woman beside the old man asked, How old are you? Lei Xingfeng was extremely honest. In front of absolute strength, don't try to challenge them. This was an iron rule. He said 17. Then he added, Just turned 17. The old man asked, How long have you been training? Lei Xingfeng said, A year. His cultivation couldn't be hidden from the eyes of the 4. They were all much higher than him. The old man's snow-white eyebrows twitched. A year, 3 true ring bodies, a true Lunin master, and he could already see clearly that this child was about to reach the 4th true ring body. That was a great true Lunin master. How did he train? And he didn't even have a master. This was simply unimaginable. Qi Mei Yun said, That's impossible. A year of training and 3 true ring bodies, a true Luin Yin master. Master, this is too fake. The old man reached out and pressed down on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. In that instant, Lei Xingfeng felt as if he was being seen through, but he cleverly didn't move. After a while, the old man's face finally showed a trace of surprise. He slowly said, It's really rare. This kind of talent, only your great senior brother can compare to him, and even your great senior brother isn't as strong as him. This time, Qi Mei Yun, Yin Yao, and the woman beside the old man all showed a shocked expression. Lei Xingfeng guessed that this great senior brother must be very strong. The old man said, Since you don't have a master, then follow me. I believe that I have the strength to be your master. Lei Xingfeng couldn't say anything. He couldn't explain, and he couldn't refuse. Luckily, he had the experience of 2 lives. He knew what to do and what not to do. He almost didn't hesitate to say, Yes, master. Hearing this, the old man's face showed a very satisfied expression. He slowly said, My principle is that I don't have any principles. Living is my principle. If I die, then I don't have any principles. Of course, if you feel that master isn't satisfied, you can also leave. Lei Xingfeng listened in shock. What the hell was this? The old man looked at the dazed Lei Xingfeng and couldn't help but laugh. He said, Child, what's your name? I'm Gucci. Qi Mei Yun and Yin Yao couldn't help but blink. This unreliable master, he had already acknowledged him as his master, but he still didn't know the child's name. The woman beside the old man giggled. She was gently patted on the head by the old man and said, What's so funny? You'll be his master's wife in the future. Be more serious, or the little guy will look down on you. By the way, your master's wife is Tanya. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, My name is Lei Xingfeng. He had no choice but to acknowledge Gucci as his master. This Gucci's aura was too strong, much stronger than the old man thunderstorm. He simply couldn't resist in his heart. Tanya said, Why didn't you call me? Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, Hello, master's wife. Tanya smiled and said, "Hey, good boy. Hee 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 hee." As if she had taken advantage of him, she suddenly looked very happy. Chi Meiyun said, "I'm your fourth senior sister, Chi Meiyun." Yin Yao said, "I'm your sixth senior sister, Yin Yao." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. The two of them fought to the death, and they were actually sisters. "Greetings, fourth senior sister, sixth senior sister." Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to offend either of them. These two women were like two female lunatics when they fought, and their curses were extremely unpleasant to the ears. The two of them didn't treat Lei Xingfeng badly, because Lei Xingfeng's aptitude was too frightening. They didn't want to have another powerful enemy in the future, so they treated Lei Xingfeng quite well. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Master, what sect are we from?" He estimated that with the old man's strength, it should be a super sect. Gucci said, "What sect? We don't have a sect. I am a sect. Don't care what sect it is, that thing will only harm people. Let's go back first." With a tap of his finger, they entered the void and instantly appeared in another place. Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood that they didn't need to go through the Luin spot and directly entered the ancient Luin passage. This old man's strength was too frightening. What was this place? In the wilderness, even the trees couldn't grow big. There were countless weeds and all kinds of beasts. Groups of beasts ran past, and when they met a lone beast, whether it was a ferocious beast or a wild beast, they would rush forward and tear it apart. Lei Xingfeng looked at the wilderness and was stunned. This place wasn't as good as his hometown in the barbarian gathering continent. At least Tiger Cliff Castle was still beautiful, and although there were more barbarians, it was rich in resources. This place looked like a remote and desolate place where even rabbits don't shit. There were all kinds of wild beasts, most of which he didn't recognize. Chi Meiyun let out a roar, and all the wild beasts and vicious beasts immediately fled in fear. In just a few seconds, the surroundings were completely silent. Chi Meiyun giggled and said, "You still remember me?" Hee. They all ran away. Yin Yao grinned with a look of disdain. Gucci said, "All right, you two are so naughty, let's go." He waved his hand to let the strange beast leave, and like everyone else, they walked forward. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Why aren't we flying?" Gucci said, "Don't you feel the difference here?" Chapter 103. Lei Xingfeng said, "There's nothing different." That's not right. My body seems to have gotten heavier." Tanya giggled and said, "Little brat, you're really slow." That's right. You should be a true Luanine master." Hee, this little bit of gravity is nothing. Back then, Meiyun and little Yao Yao crawled down a moment they came in, ha ha ha. She suddenly burst into laughter, as if she had thought of something interesting. Gucci said, all right, be careful not to choke." Tanya was originally fine, but after hearing his words, she choked and coughed repeatedly. Cough, 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 cough. "You bad guy. You're bullying me again. Cough, cough." Gucci gently patted her back and said, "Look, you choked. I told you to be careful, but you didn't listen." Tanya made threatening gestures and knocked on Gucci's chest. That coquettish look made Lei Xingfeng shiver uncontrollably. This was too nauseating. The two senior sisters acted as if they didn't see anything, looking straight ahead as if there was a beautiful flower in front of them that they couldn't take their eyes off. Gucci gently hugged Tanya's waist and said, all right, it's not good for the child to see this." Lei Xingfeng's face was full of black lines. It seemed like he was the only child here. Was this for me to hear? I'd better play dead. He also looked straight ahead, as if there was a pile of golden rings in front of him. The two flirted for a while, but in Lei Xingfeng's heart, his master and master's wife had dropped by many levels. He silently followed his master and master's wife. This path wasn't difficult, but he didn't know that all of Gucci's disciples followed him to the encampment. Who knew how many genius disciples cried the entire way? Their bodies suddenly became several times heavier, and they still had to walk for half a day. If they hadn't cultivated before, it would definitely be a disaster. Along the way, Xian Feng's heart was in a mess. He had no choice but to become a disciple. He had no choice but to follow his master. Even he himself felt confused. He didn't know where this place was. He didn't know where his old man went, and he couldn't find his little sister. If he had been in Wanxi continent, he might have had a chance to find them, but now he was in despair. Lei Xingfeng secretly sighed. He knew that unless his strength increased greatly, he wouldn't have a chance to go out. At this time, he could only stay here peacefully. As for the boat that he promised to Zhou Xian, it had already been burned, and he couldn't go back. He could only wait for a chance to repay him in the future. Soon, Lei Xingfeng found a mountain in front of him. This mountain was very strange. It was a lonely peak, and it was very tall. It occupied a large area, and it was still surrounded by rolling hills. As they got closer, Lei Xingfeng found that this mountain was very big. He couldn't see the sides of the mountain. They had already entered a forest. This forest was also very strange. At first, the trees were short and thick, but after walking for a while, the trees began to grow taller. He also found that the gravity began to change, as if it had returned to normal. Gucci grabbed Lei Xingfeng's arm and said, "Okay, let's fly back." They immediately rose into the air and flew towards the mountain. At lightning speed, Lei Xingfeng found that the mountain was very far away and that the mountain was very big. As they got closer, the mountain was actually endless. There were 5 peaks. From afar, it looked like they were gathered together. Only when they got closer did they realize that there were actually 5 peaks. The main peak towered into the clouds. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but open his mouth wide. After a while, he said, "This mountain is too big." Qi Meiyun said, "After we go in, it will be even bigger." Lei Xingfeng said stupidly, "Oh." Yin Yao said, "Mph, big my ass." Qi Meiyun curled her lips and said, "You're small, so don't complain about other people saying it's big." Yin Yao's face suddenly changed. Just as she was about to say something, Gucci said, "You two naughty people, are you trying to anger your master to death?" The two suddenly stopped talking. Lei Xingfeng was confused and didn't know what the two were doing. Tanya suddenly made a chi-chi sound. Lei Xingfeng understood that it was the sound of her try to hold back her laughter. However, she soon stopped. Yin Yao's face turned red, and Qi Meiyun had a proud look on her face. Anyway, Lei Xingfeng was completely confused. However, he also had his own way of adapting. If he didn't understand, he would just ignore it. Because they were all flying, their speed was really fast. In just a moment, they were flying up the mountain. Soon, they entered a canyon. Lei Xingfeng actually saw a house at the bottom of the canyon. A road extended along the canyon. He asked curiously, "Below, who lives here?" Tanya explained, "That's the town where the slaves live. The place where we live is just ahead." Along the way, Xian Feng not only saw a few small towns, he also saw quite a few farmlands and plantations. He gradually realized that this place should be a whole by itself. After a while, the few of them once again flew up and arrived at the main peak. The main peak's terrain was very steep. Most of it was cliffs. It was impossible to go up without knowing how to fly. A huge platform appeared. The few of them landed. The platform was empty. Gucci said, "Okay, let's go in." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Go in? Go in where?" Gucci smiled and said, "Follow me and you'll know." He held Tanya's hand and stepped forward. Suddenly, the air in front of them distorted like water waves. In an instant, Gucci and Tanya disappeared. Lei Xingfeng was stunned, but he still stepped forward subconsciously. His body paused for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. It was a different world. Lei Xingfeng looked back. He was actually on a lawn. There were many flowers and trees around the lawn. The sky was blue. Then, he saw Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao suddenly appear on the lawn. It was as if they appeared out of thin air. He was so scared that his heart was beating wildly. This had completely overturned all of his knowledge. At this moment, he faintly felt that it was not a bad thing to have a master. Qi Meiyun giggled and said, "Little junior brother is scared." Hee hee. Gucci smiled and said, "When you first came, you were even worse than a foam." Yin Yao said, "Master, did she pee herself?" Qi Meiyun shouted, "Yin Yao, you're the one who's pissing your pants. You." She turned around and ran to Gucci's side. She grabbed his arm and shook it with all her strength. "Master, look, she's the one who's causing trouble." Gucci laughed and said, "All right, you two naughty people. Can't you let me be less worried?" Lei Xingfeng felt a headache. These two senior sisters seemed to be enemies, but also not. What kind of relationship was this? He was confused. Walking out of the lawn, he saw 2 rows of people dressed in white standing on both sides of the road. When they saw them coming, they all knelt down and saluted. "Welcome, master." Lei Xingfeng slightly observed and could not help but be shocked. These were not normal people, but practitioners. The weakest was at least 1,000 Luan master. The leader was actually a mill-wheel master. Gucci said, "Get up, go and bring the chair over." The so-called chair was similar to the sliding pole in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. It was a reclining chair carried by 2 people. Lei Xingfeng sat on it. Immediately, 2 people in white lifted it up. The 5 of them sat on their own chairs and walked along the road. Along the way, Lei Xingfeng saw countless people in white. When they saw them, they all knelt down to welcome them. Only when they left did they stand up and move. Seeing this, he was stunned. He did not know where he had run to. In his heart, he was confused. Why were the rules here so strict? Tanya seemed to see Lei Xingfeng's confusion. She said, "Afeng, don't be confused. They are all servants. Here, only we are the masters." Lei Xingfeng was even more confused. "What is this place?" Gucci said, "Don't think too much. Soon you'll get used to it. Hee, this place will be very comfortable." Lei Xingfeng gradually became silent. He needed to understand and adapt. This place was too strange and strange. He did not know anything and did not know anything. It was better to speak less. Lei Xingfeng was once again shocked by the enormous building community. The exquisite buildings were all built with large pieces of white jade. He could not use words to describe this kind of building. The style of the building was absolutely unfamiliar. It gave him a feeling of grandeur and exquisiteness. There were many building materials he had never seen before. However, there was one thing he was very familiar with. It was the large pieces of glass. He did not know how this place produced such transparent glass walls. Lei Xingfeng could only laugh at himself in his heart. All right. I am just a country bumpkin. I don't know anything." Gucci said, "All right, Mei Yun and Yao Yao go back. Remember, don't fight anymore. You're not allowed to go out during this period of time." Chi Mei Yun and Ying Yao both agreed with a worried expression and left. Gucci said, "All right, Afeng, come with me to see the founder." Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, there is a founder?" Gucci slapped him on the head and said, "Nonsense, of course there is a grandmaster. You have a master now, and so do I." Tanya giggled and said, "Don't be so strange." Hee, this shouldn't be strange. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said in his heart, "This is strange enough." After passing through a few arched doors and a few circular corridors, they arrived at a large courtyard. Along the way, there were countless strange trees and flowers. Lei Xingfeng almost did not recognize any of them. Following the white jade stairs, they arrived at a gigantic glass house. Even the roof was made of glass. It was beautiful, with a long white veil hanging down from the ceiling. Quickly, they entered the glass house. The white jade floor was inlaid with gold and silver threads, polished to an extremely glossy level. Around the room, there were a few attendants standing with their hands by their sides. Here, Exine Feng saw a large aquarium. He was curious as to why there was such a thing here. A few strange fish were swimming in the aquarium. These fish had a strange kind of beauty. Their bodies flickered with multicolored splendor. They were about 1 foot long and had a string of flag-like fins extending from their heads to their tails. As they swam, they brought up a string of bubbles. Chapter 104. The aquarium tank was a partition, and its function was similar to a screen. Turning around the aquarium tank, Lei Xingfeng saw a person sitting on the ground. In front of him was a low table. That person was wearing a bright red robe. He didn't know what material the robe was made of, but the color was dazzling. It was actually covered with fine golden threads. If one looked carefully, they could see that the threads were all kinds of flowers. His hair was black, and he had an extremely beautiful face. He had long, thin eyebrows and thick eyelashes. His beauty definitely surpassed that of Master's wife, Tanya. That face was definitely the face of a young woman. It was so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. Lei Xingfeng was once again shocked speechless. Was this person a man or a woman? Could it be that the founder was a woman? Gucci and Tanya bowed down and said in unison, "Greetings, Master." Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stand still. He also bowed down and said, "Disciple greets the founder." That person slowly opened his eyes and casually glanced at the three of them. Lei Xingfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and in an instant, all the uncomfortable feelings disappeared. "All right, get up. Is this your new disciple?" The voice was very neutral, but it had a magnetic quality. It was very pleasant to the ears, but Lei Xingfeng still couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman's voice. Gucci said very respectfully, "Yes, Master. This is my new disciple." The founder said, "Very good aptitude. Little guy, what's your name?" Lei Xingfeng said, "My name is Lei Xingfeng." The founder said, "This name is not bad. Your master's original name was terrible, and I changed it when he came to me. All right, you can leave now. Little guy, if you have time, come and see me, okay?" Xian Feng agreed. He had been looking at this strange ancestor the whole time. After he finished speaking, he actually winked at Xian Feng. His looks were definitely at the level of causing the downfall of a country. With just a wink, Xian Feng felt a wave of dizziness. He couldn't help but curse silently. Ancestor is actually winking at me? Damn, this founder. Is he a man or a woman? Could it be that he's neither male nor female? The three of them left. Lei Xingfeng's heart was still in a mess. Soon, a large group of servants knelt down to greet them. Gucci said, "Where's the butler?" Someone immediately reported, "The butler went to another courtyard and will be back soon." Gucci said, "Since you're here, come to my place," bringing Lei Xingfeng, Gucci, and Tanya to another large courtyard. This was an extremely simple courtyard. The ground was just a lawn without any flowers. The house was also very simple. It was completely empty on all sides. Four jade pillars supported a rectangular platform. On the platform, there was a small room. That was the master and mistress bedroom. There were no stairs to go up, so they had to fly up. Lei Xingfeng endured and endured, but in the end, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He didn't dare to ask Gucci, so he whispered to Tanya, "Master, founder, she is." He didn't know how to ask. Tanya said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "I thought you could hold it in for a long time. It turns out that there are times when you can't hold it in." Gucci said, "Don't ask a phone. Master's gender. I don't know either." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but curse in his heart. Damn, this founder definitely had a personality. Tanya said with a smile, "We have a saying to describe your founder. You'll know what kind of person she is when you hear it." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What is it?" Tanya said, "Your founder is a woman among men, a man among women." Lei Xingfeng was suddenly speechless. He thought to himself, "Isn't this a typical transvestite? What the F***CK? The founder is actually a transvestite. She seems to be even more awesome than Dongfang Booby. Could this guy be a bisexual?" Thinking of this, he had goosebumps all over his body. He secretly wailed, "What the F***CK is this place? What kind of people are they?" Gucci said, "Don't talk nonsense. Master can hear it." Tanya said, "Master won't punish me because of this. Master is the most fun." Lei Xingfeng decided not to think about this anymore. It didn't matter if she was a man or a woman. As long as she was a human, it was fine. He was here to become a disciple, not to have a blind date. He quickly felt relieved. He was here to become a disciple, not to bother about whether the founder was a man or a woman. This had nothing to do with him. His master's house was simple, but extremely large. The ground was also made of white jade and was extremely smooth. Around it stood 100 servants, many of whom were strong enough that even Xian Feng couldn't see through them. He was shocked to discover that some of them had at least 4 true ring bodies, and they were actually here as servants. It was truly shocking. A servant reported, "The head butler is here." It was a tall and very handsome middle-aged man. He wore a sky blue robe and walked in with his head held high. He was different from the servants. He didn't kneel but bowed and said, "Master, I'm here." Gucci nodded and said, "AI-8, this is my disciple. Direct disciple, Lei Xingfeng. You can call him a phone." Then he said to Lei Xingfeng, "A phone, this is our head butler, AI-8. He has 9 rings and an ashen seal. You can call him AI Bo. He's not a servant, he's a retainer." AI-8's face showed a warm smile and said, "Congratulations, master. You've taken in another good disciple." Gucci said, "There are some rules here. Tell the phone. Also, arrange a courtyard for a phone to live in temporarily. Build a new residence. Ask a phone what he likes and build according to his instructions. Give off phone 4 retainers and 240 servants. In addition, choose 10 bodyguards who have at least 6th ring sage body. Give him 2 8th ring sage body bodyguards." Tanya said, "Give a phone a butler. With so many people suddenly, he won't know how to manage." Gucci nodded and said, "Give him a smart butler. A phone is still young. Don't let it be wronged." Xian Feng listened with his mouth agape. The surprise, shock, and strangeness along the way had already made him numb. But now that he was here, he was still shocked. He was a single person, yet he was assigned so many servants, guards, and even servants and housekeepers. Luckily, he had lived 2 lives, and although he was shocked, he controlled himself well, maintaining a calm appearance. In reality, he was already at a loss of what to do. The amount of information was a bit too much, and it was all in a range that he wasn't familiar with. He needed some time to digest it. AI-8 nodded and left with Lei Xingfeng. Gucci called from behind, "A phone, come over when you've settled down. If there's anything, you can ask your butler to do it." Lei Xingfeng nodded. At this time, he was still very grateful to this master. AI-8 took Lei Xingfeng to a courtyard. There were many courtyards here. Lei Xingfeng was sure that there were at least hundreds of big courtyards here. Each courtyard was magnificent. Anyway, they were much better than the villas in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. This courtyard was a little simple. It was just a house with a large number of neatly trimmed trees and flowers. AI-8 didn't take Lei Xingfeng into the room. Instead, he went to the lawn and ordered people to spread a carpet on the lawn, set up a short table, and bring some fresh fruits. After inviting Lei Xingfeng to sit down, AI-8 began to introduce the specific situation here, such as what were retainers, guards, servants, and housekeepers. Lei Xingfeng didn't know much about these. In his 2 lives, he had never used a servant, let alone a guard, retainer, or housekeeper. To put it simply, a servant was a person with no status. Their life and death depended on their master's thoughts. A retainer had a very high status, followed by a butler, and then a guard. Everything here was decided by Lei Xingfeng. Except for listening to Master Gucci and Madame Tanya, he didn't need to pay attention to anyone else. Even his senior brother couldn't control him. Of course, the founder had the greatest power. Lei Xingfeng liked this very much. He didn't want too many people to control him. It was best to be free. AI Pa Dao. This is a secret space, a space opened by the old master. It's a very complete place. However, if you want to go out, you need to have at least a 6th ring true body. Lei Xingfeng was secretly anxious. This place was not suitable for cultivation. It was best for him to cultivate in a thunderstorm so that he could grow quickly. He asked, "If I want to go out and my cultivation hasn't reached the 6th ring true body, what should I do?" AI Pa Dao. You just need to ask the housekeeper to arrange it for you. Lei Xingfeng suddenly thought of a problem and said, "By the way, why didn't 4th senior sister and 6th senior sister bring their housekeepers and retainers?" AI Pa Dao sighed and said, "The 2 of them like to fight. Of course, they can't bring their retainers and guards to fight. If they bring their retainers and guards to fight, that would be killing each other. They wouldn't choose to do that." Xian Feng was speechless. They just liked to fight. At the reed marshes, they indirectly killed 30,000 people and even burned his own boat. If it wasn't for his quick advancement in the thunderstorm and his grandpa's lightning stamp, even if he didn't die, he would still be half dead. AI Pa Dao. What kind of residence do you want? I can arrange for people to build it. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. He didn't have this plan at all. It was fine as long as he could live here. When he was on the boat, he also slept very soundly. He didn't care about the environment at all. He said, "No need, this place is good. There's no need to build a house. AI Pa Dao, a phone, here, living here is a kind of status. If you don't have a status, you won't have a choice and will be looked down upon by your subordinates." Lei Xingfeng said, "Could it be that the more luxurious it is, the higher the status?" AI Pa Dao, that's not the case. The more unique it is, the higher others will look down on it. Lei Xingfeng muttered to himself, "What does this mean? Okay, it's not that I don't have any ideas. Maybe I don't know about other things, but when it comes to uniqueness, I'm definitely more unique than you guys." Chapter 105. This was a garden building, one that Lei Xingfeng remembered from his previous life. It had a small bridge overflowing water, white walls, black tiles, and carved railings. It had an antique feel. After the construction was completed, AI-8 was extremely surprised. This building was extremely beautiful, with rich layers. Especially the rockery, flowing water, trees, and small bridges in the courtyard. It was even more magnificent. The entire garden building took less than 10 days to complete. Lei Xingfeng was extremely impressed. The efficiency of the people here surprised him. Any idea, as long as it was mentioned, someone would quickly do it. A model only took half a day, and then it took less than 8 days to build it. Another day to decorate it. That speed was like flying. When the garden building was completed, not only was Master Gucci full of praise, even the ancestral master came to take a look. It was obvious that he was also excited. Xi and Feng didn't expect that just by building a house, he would be in the limelight for once. But after the garden was built, Lei Xingfeng regretted. This building reminded him of many things from his previous life. Therefore, not long after living here, he moved to the courtyard next door. The garden was empty, but Yin Yao and Qi Meiyan often came to live here. Both of them liked this building, and because of this, they constantly argued. In just a few days, Lei Xingfeng gradually understood the situation of this secret space. The so-called secret space and the hidden Luin space were two different concepts. The hidden Luin space could be moved by people, but the secret space could not be moved after it was opened. The secret space could be used as a living area. In this case, tens of thousands of people could live in it. This secret space was inherited by Gucci. After several generations of management, this space had developed to be very suitable for living. This was also why the ancestral master stayed here for a long time. The ancestral master was called Wu Yang, a very mysterious guy. Gucci had a total of 9 direct disciples. Lei Xingfeng was the 9th disciple, and there were 67 registered disciples. In addition, there were more than 3,000 preparatory disciples and more than 300 retainers. Although there were not as many as the disciples, their status was extremely high. They were only slightly lower than the direct disciples. Of course, the retainers had to be very strong. There were more guards, about 3,000 or 4,000 of them. As for servants, there were at least tens of thousands of them. There were also ordinary people who were even worse than the servants. There were even more of them, about hundreds of thousands of them. They all lived outside the secret treasure space. There was no difference between the direct disciples. Other than listening to Gucci, there was no need to pay attention to anyone else. Every direct disciple was the master here, and their status was at the top of the pyramid. Although the ancestral master, Wu Yang, had the highest status here, the person in charge was Gucci. There were some things he would not interfere with. One must know that Wu Yang had many disciples, and Gucci was only one of them. He lived here because he liked the environment here. Also, Gucci was very respectful to him, making him feel very comfortable living here. Of the 9 direct disciples, only 5 were still here. 4th senior sister Qi Meiyan, 6th senior sister Yin Yao, 7th senior brother Teng Yuan, 8th senior sister Miao Ling, and Lei Xingfeng, number 9. As for eldest senior brother Feng Qinzong, 2nd senior brother Yu Ko, 3rd senior brother Xi Jiaowen, and fifth senior brother by Tianming. They were all out. Lei Xingfeng also found out that the other direct disciples had at least 4 true ring bodies. Eighth senior sister Miao Ling was the only one with 6 true ring. None of them were easy to deal with. However, of these 8 senior brothers and sisters, the youngest was 30 years old, and Lei Xingfeng was only 17. He was definitely at the level of a little brother. Even 2 lifetimes added together wouldn't be as comfortable as living here. For the first time, Lei Xingfeng enjoyed the treatment of being surrounded by a large group of people. He only needed to give the order, and someone would immediately take care of it. He didn't need to do anything himself. Soon, Lei Xingfeng realized that if he wanted to enjoy himself, this was the best place. No wonder the ancestral master stayed here. It was too comfortable. But if he wanted to increase his strength and find Yi and his sister, he couldn't continue to enjoy himself here. After thinking for a few days, Lei Xingfeng decided to leave. However, before he left, he needed to search for resources related to his cultivation. Uncle Ai, Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper, was a short, middle-aged man. He had a serious expression on his face all day long. His name was Ishanel, which was actually Ai 32. All housekeepers had the surname Ai. Ai Ita Ai Chi had died long ago, so Ai 8 was the head housekeeper. Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper was Ai 32, and his official name was Ishanel. Ishanel walked in and said a phone. He should have called a master, but Lei Xingfeng felt that it was too awkward and forced him to change it. Following his master's orders, Ishanel only called Lei Xingfeng a phone in private. If there were outsiders, he would still follow the rules. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll go to master's place and arrange a car." Ishanel agreed and left with a few servants. Lei Xingfeng also had 10 bodyguards. Every time he went out, there would be 2 bodyguards following him. They were all extremely powerful experts. 8 true ring bodies and 2 true ring bodies were only bodyguards here. This kind of strength in the outside sex was definitely an ancestor-level expert. As for the 4 retainers, they were in charge of managing the household. Once Lei Xingfeng went out to establish his own power, these 4 retainers would be very important. Right now, they were living in the courtyard and didn't care about anything. Their main task was to cultivate. The bodyguards were divided into 2 groups. Each group had 5 people. 4 were true ring masters with 6 true ring bodies, and 1 was a true Hardin master with 8 true ring bodies. The 2 personal bodyguards were both true Hardin masters with 8 true ring bodies. One was called Tiger Love, and the other was called Mad Eagle. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare put on the airs of a master in front of these 2. He called one Uncle Tiger and the other Uncle Ing. Today, Uncle Ing was on duty, so Mad Eagle brought the 4 bodyguards to follow Lei Xingfeng. Retainers didn't need to follow their master unless the master gave the order. At this time, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't call his retainers. In fact, he didn't even want to bring his bodyguards, but he couldn't refuse them. He was used to anyways. Ishanel came in and said, "A phone, the car is ready. Are we leaving now?" Lei Xingfeng nodded. "And let's go now. Uncle Ing, let's go together." Mad Eagle nodded. The 4 bodyguards silently appeared. He was the personal bodyguard, so he always stood beside Lei Xingfeng. This guy was 2 meters tall, a head taller than Lei Xingfeng. Every time Lei Xingfeng saw him, he would complain in his heart. Why was he so tall? Standing beside this guy made him feel inferior. The so-called car was a cloud beast carrying a seat with a cover. It wasn't very similar to the cars Lei Xingfeng knew. Cloud beasts were flat beasts that could float at low altitudes. Before Lei Xingfeng came here, he had never seen one before. Even in the hidden space, these cloud beasts were very rare. Only a few people could ride them. It represented one's status and identity. Sitting in the car, the cloud beast slowly floated forward. It wasn't fast, but it was very stable. Beside the cloud beast were 2 rows of servants. In about 10 minutes, the cloud beast arrived at the courtyard of Gucci's residence. Someone had already gone in to report. After a while, AI 8 came out to greet them. AI Pa Dao said, "A phone." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Uncle AI, I'm here to look for Master." AI Pa Dao said, "Come in." He was very enthusiastic. Of course, this was only for the direct disciples. Lei Xingfeng's housekeeper brought a group of servants in through the side door. Lei Xingfeng, AI-8, and Mad Eagle walked in together. When Lei Xingfeng walked into the hall, AI-8 left with Mad Eagle. There was no need for personal guards in this place. If there was danger in front of Master, there was no safe place. Gucci was sitting alone. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come in, he smiled and said, "I think you should be here too." "How is it? Are you used to living here?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I'm not used to it." Gucci was stunned and said, "What's wrong? Who didn't take good care of you?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's not that they didn't take good care of me, but they took good care of me too much. It's so comfortable. I don't want to do anything. Master, I don't want to stay here for too long. It's not good for my cultivation." Gucci laughed and said, "Good. You reacted so quickly. Haha, little guy, you're really interesting." Lei Xingfeng sat down cross-legged casually and said, "Master, I want to learn something." Gucci nodded and said, "The thunder cultivation method you learned before is still okay, but it's very rough. Well, I'll give you this star python record. Learn it first and fill in the basics. You can keep this star python record. Don't teach it to others without my permission. Remember, this is very important." Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Okay, if I want to teach it to others, do I have to get Master's permission?" Gucci said, "Who do you want to teach it to? If you want to take a disciple, your strength is not enough." Lei Xingfeng really wanted to teach Ai Yi what he learned, but he didn't know where Ai Yi was. He said, "Okay, I'll learn it first. If there's anything I don't understand, I'll come back and ask." Gucci nodded and said, "Okay, you can come back and ask for guidance at any time. Also, if you want to go out and gain experience, just tell your housekeeper. He will arrange it." Lei Xingfeng said, "Got it, Master. I'll come back in a few days." He didn't stay any longer. He put away the star python record and got up to leave. Like a mouse falling into a rice jar, Lei Xingfeng was completely infatuated. He studied day and night and was completely immersed in the star python record. Many of the questions he encountered during cultivation were answered. This star python record recorded a large number of thunder cultivation methods. With one look, he knew that this star python record was specially prepared for him. Every 15 to 20 days, Lei Xingfeng would go to his master's place and ask a lot of questions. After answering them, he would go back and continue to work hard. He wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he worked hard to learn everything recorded in the star python record. He didn't ask to be able to fight, but to understand. He originally planned to go out and travel, but after obtaining the star python record, Lei Xingfeng completely forgot about it. Chapter 106. As he studied deeper, Lei Xingfeng's questions became deeper and deeper. There were some strange ideas that even Gucci couldn't answer. At this time, Lei Xingfeng would go to his ancestor to find answers. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng not only went to find his master, but also went to his ancestor's place to harass him. Ancestor Wu Yang really liked this quick-witted disciple. Every time Lei Xingfeng came over, he would prepare many delicious dishes. The two ate and discussed at the same time. The atmosphere was very good. Today, Lei Xingfeng came over again. Wu Yang said, "What did you find out?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Ancestor, does condensing the ninth ring true body mean that one's cultivation reaches the peak?" Wu Yang suddenly laughed. Lei Xingfeng quickly lowered his head. He didn't dare to look at his ancestor's laughter. This guy was simply too demonic. When he laughed, he could steal a person's soul away. Peak ninth ring true body? Little guy, do you believe it? Lei Xingfeng slowly shook his head. He might have believed it before, but now he was full of doubts. Of course he wouldn't believe it. Wu Yang said, "Condensing the ninth ring true body also means that the foundation is complete. This step is very important, but 99% of cultivators will stop at this step. They won't have the chance to take another step because crossing this step means transcending the mortal world. It's too difficult." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Ninth ring true body, what realm is it?" Wu Yang said, "True monarch, but that's too far away. It's not something you can understand now. Knowing it too early won't do you any good." Lei Xingfeng sucked in a breath of cold air. There really was more. True monarch? What was that? What level was it? Ancestor, tell me, what's after true monarch? Wu Yang laughed and scolded. Heavenly monarch. AI. Little brat, you're thinking too much. You only have 3 true ring bodies, a small true Luan Yin master. You haven't even reached the Yinli conversion stage yet. Why are you thinking so much? Lei Xingfeng said nonchalantly, I'll reach 9th ring sage soon. He didn't know how others cultivated, but he knew that as long as he went into a thunderstorm and absorbed the lightning of nature, his advancement would be like flying. He didn't have to worry about it at all. Wu Yang raised his hand and gave him a slap. Of course, it was a very light slap. Blow as hard as you can, he said. Lei Xingfeng said, Founder, I'm really not boasting. Advancing to the next level really isn't difficult. He really wasn't boasting. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never been troubled by his advancement. It was only because of his rapid advancement that he had no choice but to suppress his cultivation. Wu Yang sighed and said, I know. I don't know if this is good for you or not. Lei Xingfeng said, It shouldn't be bad. Founder, don't scare me. Wu Yang said, Who has the heart to scare you? Whatever, you're just a little freak. I've seen so many amazing little brats, but I've never seen one like you. Only 17 years old, and you've already condensed 3 true ring bodies. Fuck, you've only cultivated for a year. Lei Xingfeng said, Founder, you're swearing. Wu Yang said, Is it strange? Lei Xingfeng fiercely nodded. It's very strange. Wu Yang suddenly laughed. Little brat, you haven't seen me swearing yet. What's so strange about it? Don't be surprised. He laughed very boldly and charmingly. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to look at him. It wasn't because he was afraid of being seduced, but because he was afraid of being provoked. Lei Xingfeng said, Founder, how many disciples do you have? Wu Yang stopped laughing. After a while, he said, In my life, I've taken in 7 disciples. Your master Guqi is the youngest. Lei Xingfeng said, What about the other disciples? Wu said, The eldest disciple is dead. He died in outer space. Back then, I had high hopes for him. The 2nd and 3rd disciples, they disappeared hundreds of years ago and never came back. No one knew if they were alive or dead. The 4th disciple tried to be brave and fought fiercely. He liked to kill. In the end, he was killed by an old man. Although I rushed over and killed them all, he didn't come back alive. Yes, the 5th disciple married your master. The 6th disciple became independent and inherited his own legacy. In other words, Wu Yang had a total of 7 disciples. At present, there are only 3 left. 2 of them were married, which was the current master's wife, and 1 was independent. No wonder the patriarch lived here. In addition to living a comfortable life, having 2 disciples by his side made him feel much better. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng could feel Wu Yang's disappointment. He comforted, Founder, maybe 2nd and 3rd martial uncle are still alive. Since there's no news, there's still a possibility. With Wu Yang's experience, of course he knew that Lei Xingfeng was comforting him. He shook his head. Everyone has their own fortune and opportunities. Life or death, it doesn't matter. He had already seen through everything. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. Knowing that he couldn't persuade him, he said, Right, what is outer space? Wu Yang said, That. You don't have to worry about it. With your strength, you can't go there. To go there, you need to be at least 8th ring body. If you're not a true heart Yin master, you'll just be sending yourself to death. Lei Xingfeng said, I don't want to go, I just want to understand. Wu Yang said, Don't think about it for now. Wait until you reach 9th ring body and Ashen Seal Sage. Maybe you can try to go to the edge, but I don't approve of going in too deep. Actually, this place is not bad. There aren't many strong people, at most 5th, 6th, or 7th ring experts. You have guards. No one will dare to do anything to you. It's the safest place. Lei Xingfeng said, Ayaya, it's not like a flower growing in a greenhouse. If it doesn't experience wind and rain, how can it bloom? Pa. Lei Xingfeng held his head and said, I'm going to be beaten silly. Wu Yang laughed and scolded, Bah, flower my ass. What, wind and rain? You have absolute strength. Who cares about wind and rain? Don't believe that nonsense. Many geniuses died like that before they even grew up. Do you want to die? Lei Xingfeng shook his head. He didn't want to die. He hadn't lived enough. This world was wonderful, 100 times more wonderful than the last. Living to see the world was better than anything else. He said, Okay, I understand. Wu Yang said, if you reach Tao Monarch, even if those sages have ninth ring bodies, they'll still be defeated. So, the most important thing is to grow up first. Also, remember, if you can't beat them, run away. Your family is full of experts. It's better to ask experts to fight for you than to fight with your life on the line. Don't be embarrassed. If you're embarrassed, you'll be the unlucky one. Lei Xingfeng listened, dumbfounded. He couldn't say that his ancestor was wrong, but why did it sound so awkward? AI-8 suddenly walked over and said, Ancestor, something happened. Wu Yang said with an indifferent expression, What happened? AI Padao said, Little 3 was beaten. He's seriously injured. Wu Yang stood up and said, Let's go take a look. Little guy, let's go together. Lei Xingfeng knew that the so-called Little 3 was his third senior brother, Xian Jiaoluan. He hadn't seen Xian Jiaoluan since he came. Soon, they arrived at Gucci's courtyard. Lei Xingfeng followed Wu Yang all the way here. At Master's house, he saw Xian Jiaoluan for the first time. Xian Jiaoluan was an old man with wrinkles all over his face. He was bald, except for a circle of white hair at the back of his head. The most eye-catching part of his face was his big, bulbous nose. At this time, his eyes were closed, his lips were dark purple, and his breath was weak. He looked like he was on the verge of death. Gucci and Tang stood up to welcome Master. Wu Yang asked, What's going on? Gucci said, He was poisoned and fought with all his strength. After he was exhausted, the poison spread. He barely made it to our contact point before he was sent back. He almost died. His face was gloomy, and he couldn't hide his killing intent. Wu Yang said, Let's save him first. Tang took out a small bottle of medicine and poured it directly into Xian Jiaoluan's mouth. She said, The antidote may not work. Let's suppress it first. I don't know if it will wake him up. Only then can we better understand what kind of poison he was poisoned with. Wu Yang was silent for a moment. He turned his wrist, and a small crystal bottle as thick as a finger appeared. There was an inch of green liquid inside. He said, Give him a drop. Let's save his life first. Gucci said this. Okay. Lei Xingfeng asked in a low voice, AI Bo, what kind of medicine is that? AI-8 smiled bitterly and said, It's sky green. That's sky green. As long as he's still breathing, a drop of sky green can save his life. This medicine has been peerless for a long time. Even the founder only had half a bottle. Gucci carefully pulled out a drop of sky green and dripped it into Xian Jiaoluan's mouth. Then he carefully returned the crystal bottle to Wu Yang. Even he didn't have this kind of medicine. It was too precious. After a few minutes, Xian Jiaoluan groaned and opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Gucci and the others, he was obviously relieved. Gucci whispered, Xiao San, what's going on? Who hit you? Xian Jiaoluan groaned and opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Gucci and the others, he was obviously relieved. Gucci whispered, Xiao San, what's going on? Who hit you? Xian Jiaoluan didn't seem to react for a while. After a while, a trace of confusion appeared on his face. He said slowly, Master, madam, the founder is also here. I'm back. Huh. Tang said, Xiao San, don't worry. You're already home. Lei Xingfeng felt awkward to be called Xiao San, especially to a man. This kind of incongruity was even stronger. Xian Jiaoluan smiled bitterly and said, My luck is good. Haha, I actually escaped. Gucci said, Xiao San, who did it? Xian Jiaoluan said, Master, don't worry about this. When I recover, I'll solve it myself. Gucci nodded and said, Well, are they strong? Xian Jiaoluan said, Strong my ass. They F** King drugged me. If I hadn't reacted quickly at that time, I would have died there. A group of gutless rats. When I recover, I'll slaughter these bastards. Gucci and Tang were obviously relieved. Gucci said, In that case, you should recuperate well. The founder gave you a drop of sky green, so there shouldn't be any sequelae. With the effect of sky green, no matter what kind of poison it is, it will be detoxified. You will recover in a few days. Chapter 107. Exai and Jalowin exclaimed in surprise, "Sky green! Ancestral Master, it's such a waste to use sky green." Wu Yong said in annoyance, "You look like you're half dead, making your master worry. Do you think I would be reluctant to use a drop of sky green? You bastard, you would dare blame me? Also, I gave you so many guards. You bastard, can't you take one with you? You've suffered enough this time. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant in the future." Exai and Jalowin hurriedly said, "Ancestral Master, I don't dare to blame you. Sigh, I just can't bear to use it. Sky green can save a life at a critical moment." Then he said pitifully, "Ancestral Master, it's very troublesome to bring guards. I like to be alone outside. I can enjoy the rare loneliness." Seeing him acting cute, Lei Xingfeng had goosebumps all over his body. An old man acting cute in front of a beautiful guy whose gender was unknown, he felt more comfortable being struck by lightning. Wu Yong said, "Nonsense, I'm saving a life. Your master is anxious to kill someone. How can I just stand by and watch?" Then he said, "Bah, enjoy the loneliness? What nonsense." Tanya giggled and said, "Xiao San has such a temper. Master, don't scold him." Lei Xingfeng looked on coldly. For the first time, he realized that this small group was very united. Whether it was the ancestral master, or master's wife, they all treated their disciples well. This made him very happy. A humane master was better than a cold master. He liked this kind of atmosphere. Qi Meiyun said, "Third senior brother, if you want to take revenge, bring me along. I've been idle for too long. I also want to move around a bit." Exai and Jalowin said, "Junior sister, sure, let's go together." This time he did not refuse. Lei Xingfeng also wanted to move around. Recently, he had been studying too hard and was a bit tired. He said, "Third senior brother, bring me along too." It was only then that Exai and Jalowin noticed Lei Xingfeng. He asked in confusion, "This is?" Gucci said, "This is your 9th junior brother, a direct disciple that I just accepted. As a senior brother, you have to take care of him." Exai and Jalowin was pleasantly surprised. "Master, you've accepted another disciple?" Gucci replied, "And I just took him in not long ago. He's only 17 years old, but he's already a true ring master with 3 true ring bodies." Exai and Jalowin said, so powerful. Little junior brother, don't go. It's too dangerous." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "I'm not going to do anything. I just want to watch the show and see more." Exai and Jalowin was also very straightforward. He said, "I see. Okay, we'll take you with us when we take action." This time he didn't refuse. As long as Lei Xingfeng didn't do anything, there wouldn't be any danger. He knew that the guards that his master assigned to Lei Xingfeng must be very strong. Wu Yong said, "Okay, let little 3 rest for a while. I'll go back first." Exai and Jalowin said, "Thank you, ancestral master." Wu Yong said, "What are you thanking me for? It's just that you little brats shouldn't cause too much trouble. Don't make me worry. That's filial piety." He turned and left. Exai and Jalowin smiled bitterly. Outside, how can there be no trouble? I'm not like you who doesn't go out all day. Of course there's no trouble. Gucci stared at him and said, "Little 3, how can you say that?" Exai and Jalowin laughed foolishly and said, "Hey, little junior brother, how does it feel to come here?" Yin Yao came in and said, "Third senior brother, why are you injured again? Who hit you? Tell me. Hee hee, I'll take revenge for you." Qi Meiyun said, "You? Forget it. With your level, you'll be beaten to death. You're just a tyrant at home." Yin Yao snorted and said, "What's wrong with my level? My level is very good." Gucci and Exai and Jalowin covered their foreheads at the same time. Gucci said, "Yao Yao, what are you doing here?" Yin Yao said, "I'm here to see senior brother." "Senior brother, who hit you? I'll help you." Exai and Jalowin smiled and said, Okay. Wait until I've recovered and I'll take you there." He said in his heart, "Wait until I've recovered and I'll leave quietly." Who would dare to take a troublemaker like you? Yin Yao said, Okay, it's a promise. Don't go back on your word. After she finished speaking, she ran away. She was too lazy to stay with Qi Meiyan. The two of them were enemies and would quarrel whenever they were together. Lei Xingfeng also took his leave. He could see that Xi and Jiaoluan was exhausted and didn't plan to continue chatting with him. If he wanted to build a relationship, there would be plenty of time in the future. 10 days later, Lei Xingfeng was hiding at home to study when a servant came in and reported, Third Master is here. Third Master was third senior brother, Xi and Jiaoluan. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly went out to welcome him. Xi and Jiaoluan and Qi Meiyan walked into the courtyard together. Qi Meiyan said, Number 9, why don't you stay in your own courtyard? Why are you staying here? Your courtyard is much prettier than this one. Lei Xingfeng said, This place is already pretty good. Third senior brother, fourth senior sister. How come you have time to come here today? Xi and Jiaoluan said, Didn't you want to come with me to watch the show? Lei Xingfeng's spirit was suddenly lifted. He smiled and said, Are we going now? Xi and Jiaoluan nodded and said, We're leaving right away. What do you need to prepare? Lei Xingfeng said, No, I'll just bring 2 bodyguards. I don't need to prepare anything else. I don't need to do anything anyway. After calling a Shan over and giving him a few instructions, Lei Xingfeng brought Tiger Love and Mad Eagle as they followed Xi and Jiaoluan and Qi Meiyan out. Soon they arrived outside. Xi and Jiaoluan and Qi Meiyan both brought a group of people. Lei Xingfeng saw that these people were all experts. There were a total of 30 people. They should be the 2 subordinates or bodyguards. Xi and Jiaoluan opened the Luan Point and brought everyone away. After passing through the ancient Luan Passage, Lei Xingfeng came to an unfamiliar place. There were rocks everywhere and no trees. There were only stubborn weeds growing in the cracks of the rocks. There was no end in sight. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, There's nothing here. Where is this place? Xi and Jiaoluan said, Shattered Stone Plains. Qi Meiyan said, Number 9, this place is a treasure trove. Shattered Stone Plains has countless mineral resources. You might come here often in the future. After you condense Lei Yin, you'll need to refine your own weapon. This is a place you must visit. You come here a bit early. Hee hee. Those who can come here are mostly true Yin masters with 6 true ring bodies. They've condensed their own seals and need to refine weapons. Only then will they come here. Lei Xingfeng turned his head and asked, Uncle Tiger, Uncling, you've been here before? Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. Yes, we've been here before. Mad Eagle added, We've been here many times. This place is very dangerous. Fights often happen here. Qi Meiyan said, I like fighting. Hee hee. If it wasn't for third senior brother, Master wouldn't have let me come. I hope I can have fun this time. She had a strong desire to fight. This was brought about by her attribute. She was the most common and also the most popular attribute. Xi and Jiaoluan said, You two have to protect number 9 well. Lei Xingfeng was very depressed. He was the youngest, so why was he called number 9 instead of little 9? Tiger Love and Mad Eagle didn't answer, only nodding slightly. After becoming Lei Xingfeng's guards, their fates were tied together with Lei Xingfeng. No matter what happened in the future, they would always follow him. With their talent, they might reach the peak of the 9th ring sage, Ashen Seal. Even if they reached the peak, it would be impossible for them to go any further. However, they knew that with Lei Xingfeng's potential and talent, he had a very high chance of surpassing the 9th ring sage. Xi and Jiaoluan brought 20 guards, while Qi Meiyan brought 12. They were all people who had followed them after they became masters. Their strength was quite strong. Only a few of them were 6th ring sages, while the majority were 7th ring sages and above. Among them, there were even 9th ring Ashen Seal sages. This strength was too great. It could be seen how deep Xi and Jiaoluan's hatred was. According to his habits, he hadn't brought guards out for a long time. This time, not only did he bring guards, he also brought his junior brothers and sisters. The reason why he didn't bring Yin Yao wasn't because Xi and Jiaoluan and Yin Yao didn't have a good relationship. If he brought her along, there would be endless trouble. Yin Yao and Qi Meiyan, as long as they were together, there would be sparks flying everywhere. Who knew if the two would fight? This was a huge headache for Xi and Jaluan. They were both his junior sisters. He couldn't side with either of them. Hence, the best way was to separate them. This group of people could all fly. The only exception was Lei Xingfeng. He hadn't reached the flying realm yet. However, with 2 guards, he didn't have to worry. Mad Eagle carried Lei Xingfeng on his back and moved with the group. He wouldn't drag everyone down just because Lei Xingfeng couldn't fly. The one with the highest cultivation here was Xi and Jaluan. Not only was he a 9th ring sage with Ashen Seal, he was also a great expert who was about to become a monarch. Once he did, he would be on par with his senior brother. He would definitely be able to sweep through the super experts of the large sections. The group of people flew through the air. Many cultivators saw them from afar and immediately ran as far as they could. With one look, it was clear that this group of people wasn't to be trifled with. More than 30 cultivators with 6th ring sages and above. This strength was terrifying. Qi Meiyun said, "Senior brother, who did this to you?" She was really curious. She knew that her senior brother had always been smarter than others. She didn't expect that someone would be able to harm him. Xi and Jaluan's bald head was shining. When this matter was brought up, he felt vexed. He said, "F***CK, I was tricked by a bastard." Qi Meiyun said, "Who was it? How dare they?" Xi and Jaluan was very shy and a little angry. He said, "A woman." Qi Meiyun couldn't help but shout, "Ah, ah." Xi and Jaluan said angrily, "I say, can you not make such a fuss?" Qi Meiyun said, "No wonder you didn't tell Master. So you were tricked by a woman. Ah, senior brother, you're good. That woman, is she beautiful?" Her gossipy nature was ignited. Even Lei Xingfeng signaled Mad Eagle to fly faster. He pricked up his ears to listen. Xi and Jaluan said very honestly, "She's beautiful. It's because she's F***king beautiful that I was tricked." Wahaha! Ha 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 ha! Qi Meiyun suddenly burst into laughter. Lei Xingfeng wasn't amused by Xi and Jaluan, but he was amused by Qi Meiyun's wild laughter. The group of guards around them tried their best to keep a straight face. They also wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to. The expressions on their faces were as strange as they could be. Xi and Jaluan's face suddenly turned red. "How embarrassing." He said, "Okay, don't laugh, junior sister." Qi Meiyun covered her mouth with all her strength, but she still couldn't stop laughing. Chapter 108. Xi and Jaluan sighed and said, "Sigh, that woman almost killed me, and you're still laughing." Qi Meiyun finally stopped laughing. She said, "What's that woman's background?" Xi and Jaluan said, "I don't know." Qi Meiyun was stunned and then asked, "Does she have a master or a sect?" Xi and Jaluan said, "I don't know." Qi Meiyun said, "Where does she live?" Xi and Jaluan said, "I don't know." 3 don't knows. Not only was Qi Meiyun stunned, Xi and Feng was also dumbfounded. It really was don't know. Qi Meiyun suddenly became angry. She said, "Senior brother, then what do you know?" Xi and Jaluan said, "I know her name." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. This guy had lived so long in vain. After being tricked like this, he actually didn't know anything. It was too ridiculous that he only knew a name. Qi Meiyun said, "What's her name?" Xi and Jaluan hesitated for a moment and said, "Maybe it's a fake name." Suddenly, the group of people flew up and down unsteadily. Lei Xingfeng covered his forehead and couldn't say a word. Qi Meiyun was completely defeated by her senior brother. After a while, she said, "Then where are we going?" Xi and Jaluan said, "The last place I saw her." Qi Meiyun shouted and ignored Xi and Jaluan. She was completely speechless. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Senior brother, isn't there a group of people? Do you know the others?" Xi and Jaluan said no. Xi and Feng spoke. "All right, senior sister, I admit defeat. I'm guessing that woman must be a beauty capable of bringing calamity to a country. If not, senior brother wouldn't be like this." "Senior brother, what's the cultivation of that woman? 6 true ring bodies?" Xi and Jaluan said, "I know this. She has 3 true ring bodies like you. She shouldn't be too old, at most in her 30s. She has amazing talent." Lei Xingfeng said, 3 true ring bodies? How did she get here?" Without 6 true ring bodies, coming here was courting death. Exaigeluan said with a wry smile. I brought her here. Everyone was speechless. After a while, Lei Xingfeng sighed and whispered. He asked Qi, senior brother is always very muddle-headed? Qi Meiyun huffed angrily. Is very smart. Lei Xingfeng muttered, I don't understand. Qi Meiyun also said, I don't understand either. Xian Zhaoluan said, Hey, you don't have to be so disdainful. Isn't it just being muddle-headed? There are always a few days in life when one is muddle-headed. Lei Xingfeng said, Senior brother, you're right. Qi Meiyun couldn't help but want to laugh again. With great difficulty, she held it in and said, Senior brother, we're almost there, right? Xian Zhaoluan knew it was inappropriate, but there was nothing he could do. He deeply regretted bringing his junior sister and junior brother here. He was asking for a scolding. After flying for half a day, they arrived at a gravel pit. Xian Zhaoluan landed and looked around. Damn, they're all gone, Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. Senior brother, it's strange that they're still here. He whispered, Senior sister, I think senior brother did it on purpose. Qi Meiyun whispered, On purpose? Lei Xingfeng said, He didn't want to catch that woman. Qi Meiyun nodded. And that makes sense. Exaigeluan was in a daze for a while before he came back and said, Forget it. I'll take you to a good place. Qi Meiyun said in surprise, Forget it? Senior brother, you were almost finished. If it weren't for Grandmaster saving you, you might have died this time. Are you going to just let it go? Xian Zhaoluan said, What if we can't find her? Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, Senior brother, where are you going to take us to play? He had also thought it through. Since senior brother didn't want to take revenge, and he didn't have any enmity with that woman, why should he care about this matter? He was determined not to do something that was strenuous and unrewarding. Qi Meiyun suddenly smiled and said, Well, if senior brother isn't in a hurry, why should I be? Senior brother, you have to compensate me this time. It's not fun at all to come here for nothing. Xian Zhaoluan said a little humbly, Junior sister, don't worry, I'll definitely compensate you. I'll take you to play. Qi Meiyun said, You have to have my approval first. Otherwise, if you say it's fun, but I don't think it's fun, that won't do. She began to pester endlessly. Xian Zhaoluan's forehead was sweating. He was secretly glad that he didn't bring Yin Yao. Otherwise, it would be more troublesome. He said repeatedly, Junior sister has the final say. Junior sister has the final say. Lei Xingfeng didn't make any requests. He looked at Xian Zhaoluan with deep sympathy. This guy was really pitiful. He was tortured half to death, but he still had unrealistic ideas. He said, Where are we going? Xian Zhaoluan said, There are too many people. The bodyguards have all gone home. Well, junior brother, A Feng's bodyguards stay. The others go back. One of the bodyguards said, Let us go and play. We have been cooped up at home for so long. We were hoping to come out and play this time. The other bodyguards also expressed their agreement. Bodyguards and servants were different. Bodyguards had a certain status, especially the bodyguards of the direct disciples. Their statuses were relatively high. Lei Xingfeng said, Senior brother, let's bring them along. Everyone listened carefully. Whatever happened here, we will keep it to ourselves. No one is allowed to speak nonsense. Do you understand? The bodyguards agreed in unison. Xian Zhaoluan's face immediately looked better. He was afraid that the bodyguards would spread rumors. With Lei Xingfeng stopping them, he believed that the bodyguards wouldn't do anything. After all, Lei Xingfeng was the master. The master's words were very effective. They continued to walk from the Luan Point. After passing through the ancient Luan Passage, the group of people arrived at a plain. Xian Zhaoluan said, This is the Hui continent. There are many cities here. I will bring you to the big cities to play. I have friends there. Lei Xingfeng secretly calculated. When he was young, he lived in the barbarian gathering continent. The last time he was stranded in the Wanxi continent. Now that they were in the Hui continent, it meant that he had already been to 3 big places. But out of these 3 places, the first 2 places that he went to were small corners with sparse people. Only this place could be a big place. If it was a big city, at least there would be a lot of people. Chi Meiyan said, "A big city. Oh, we don't go there often. Oh well, let's go and play." Xi and Xiaoluan flew close to the ground. The group of people followed closely behind. Very quickly, they saw a big road. The road was filled with people. When they saw a group of people flying at a low altitude, they were so scared that they knelt on the ground. All of them were in a prostrating position. No one dared to look up. Lei Xingfeng said, "Aren't we too arrogant?" Qi Meiyun asked curiously, "How is this arrogant?" In her mind, this was a very normal thing. Lei Xingfeng thought about the battle between Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao. The aftermath of the battle killed nearly 30,000 people. The two of them did not care at all. They did not even mention it. Even when his master came, he only scolded them for fighting each other. He did not even look at the dead people. He understood in his heart that they did not care about the ordinary people. They would not deliberately deal with them and would not care about what they thought. Lei Xingfeng sighed secretly. He did not know what to say. Very quickly, they saw a huge city. It was a city without walls. All kinds of buildings spread out. It occupied an area of a few hundred square kilometers. Xi and Xiaoluan landed from the sky. He said, "Okay, let's go in. It's not good to barge in my friend's territory. Let's go in." Lei Xingfeng said, "What city is this? What's its name?" Xi and Xiaoluan explained, "This is Wild City. It's Tai Meng's territory. Tai Meng is considered a strong power in this land." Tai Meng was not just strong. Tai Meng was the super overlord of this land. They controlled at least 100 big and small sections. Their territory was tens of thousands of square kilometers. Everyone living here had to listen to Tai Meng's orders. Xi and Xiaoluan's words were not wrong. According to his understanding, Tai Meng could only be considered a strong power because he was stronger. The old ancestor of Tai Meng was his friend, a very strong expert. He was a true hardy master with 8 true ring bodies. He was already an invincible existence here. However, Xi and Xiaoluan had 9 true ring bodies and an ashen seal sage. There was a difference of a level. No matter how strong the people of Tai Meng were, they would not dare to provoke such a super expert. After entering the city, Xi and Xiaoluan and Qi Meiyan dismissed their guards and let them do their own things. They had been cultivating in the secret hidden space for a long time. However, they were different from the direct disciples. When they left the secret hidden space, it had to be with the direct disciples. They were not allowed to leave by themselves. Now that they had the chance, they wanted to relax. Only Tiger Love and Mad Eagle could not leave. Lei Xingfeng was relatively weak. They had to ensure his safety. In fact, Lei Xingfeng was already very strong. At least in Hui continent, his strength should be ranked at the top. Of course, in front of their master, he was nothing. The 5 of them slowly walked into the city. Xi and Xiaoluan said, "Number 9, buy whatever you want. I will pay for it." Qi Meiyun said, "Then what about me?" Xi and Xiaoluan said, "Are you short of money?" Qi Meiyun said, "Of course I'm not short of money. Since when did I lack money?" Xi and Xiaoluan stared at her and said, "Then why are you butting in? This is a gift for number 9. He just came to our place and doesn't have much money. If he wants to buy something, of course I, the senior brother, will pay for it." Qi Meiyun giggled and said, "He is a junior brother, but I'm also a junior sister." She began to be unreasonable. The city's population was not small. However, compared to the big cities in Lei Xingfeng's previous life, the difference was too great. Walking along the main street, the ground was full of potholes and dirty water flowed. A faint stench filled the air. Lei Xingfeng knew that this was a primitive city. There was no planning or management. However, there were all kinds of small shops on the streets. The density of the shops was beyond his expectations. Lei Xingfeng said, "Why are there so many small shops?" Xi and Xiaoluan seemed to be very familiar with this place. He said, "There are a lot of small shops here. Most of them are husband and wife shops. The wife stays at home to look after the shop while the husband carries goods to the countryside. They sell small goods while buying local specialties. Both sides make a profit from the difference in price. Just this line of business alone supports more than 100,000 people." Lei Xingfeng was not interested in this. He was only interested in cultivation. As for the social structure of this place, he would just take a look at it. He did not intend to rule over it. He casually walked into a small shop. Xi and Jalouin and the others did not follow him in. They just stood by the roadside and waited. Mad Eagle followed him in, while Tiger Love stood at the door. Chapter 109. This was a very small shop. On a small shelf, there were some daily necessities, mainly various kinds of cloth and seasonings. Among them, a large jar was filled with salt, a few large vats were filled with food, and some needles and thread. A woman was sitting inside, holding a child in her arms. She curiously watched Lei Xingfeng come in. She was frightened by the mad eagle that came in after him. The mad eagle was 2 meters tall. How could an ordinary person withstand its pressure? She was so scared that she retreated. Lei Xingfeng just glanced at it and lost interest. Seeing the woman so scared, he turned around and left. Grocery stores were the most common, followed by ready-made clothing stores, small restaurants, pickled vegetable stores, shoe stores, and so on. Both sides of the street were filled with such small shops. After walking through the street, they saw many large shops. Lei Xingfeng was bored and said, "Let's go, senior brother." "Where's the fun?" "Senior brother, senior brother." "Hey, wake up. Why are you in a daze?" Xi and Jalouin stared blankly ahead. Lei Xingfeng followed Xi and Jalouin's gaze and saw a group of people standing not far ahead. He saw a woman at a glance, then looked back at X and Jalouin. Suddenly, he understood and said, "Is it that woman? Did he hurt you?" Chi Meiyin suddenly became excited and said, "Which woman? Where is she? Where is she?" No one expected that Xi and Jalouin would grab Lei Xingfeng with one hand and Chi Meiyin with the other and pull them back. The two of them were confused. Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior brother, what are you doing?" Chi Meiyin was even more angry. She said, "Hey, senior brother, why are you hiding?" With this delay, the group of people over there had already seen the 5 of them. They heard a laugh, and then the group of people rushed over. Not only was Xinfeng dumbfounded, even Chi Meiyin was dumbfounded. She had never seen anyone more arrogant than them. They didn't even try to dodge. Instead, they charged forward and surrounded the 5 of them. Lei Xingfeng looked at them coldly. There were more than 20 people in total, and they were all perfected masters. However, their levels were much lower. Most of them were perfected masters with 1 or 2 rings. There were very few perfected masters with 3 rings. Lei Xingfeng couldn't see their cultivation levels, but he guessed that they were experts. Lei, Chi, with, "How dare you surround us?" The woman in the lead stared at Xi and Jalouin and said, "You're not dead yet?" Chi Meiyin was furious and said, "You're courting death." She moved and was about to attack, but Xi and Jalouin grabbed her and said, "Junior sister, wait." Then he said to the woman, "Lu Yuan, that's enough. I've been harmed by you once. We're even." Lei Xingfeng immediately understood that the two of them must have some other entanglement. Otherwise, Xi and Jalouin wouldn't have said that. Lu Yuan was not a beautiful woman, which surprised Lei Xingfeng. She was tall and strong, with plump breasts and plump buttocks. Her skin was snow white and her appearance was very ordinary, but she had a different kind of charm. Lei Xingfeng muttered to himself, "Senior brother's taste is quite heavy. He likes this kind of woman." In fact, he also knew that this kind of woman was very tempting to some men. Lu Yuan's voice was very loud and clear. She said, "Even? You're dreaming. If you don't die, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "Senior brother, did you do that to him?" Xi and Jalouin didn't react for a moment and said, "Do what?" Lei Xingfeng touched his nose. He was too embarrassed to say it directly. He said with a little lack of confidence, "It's that. Chi Meiyin suddenly reacted. Her face suddenly turned red. She slapped Lei Xingfeng on the shoulder and said, "You little kid, you're thinking too much. How could it be that?" She couldn't say it out loud. However, Xinfeng understood. He sighed and said, "That was a misunderstanding. I didn't sigh. I can't explain it clearly." Lu Yuan's face turned red. She said angrily, "You bastard." She was scolding Lei Xingfeng. Mad Eagle and Tiger Love couldn't stand it. The two of them took a step forward at the same time. Their huge aura directly crushed the crowd. The two of them shouted at the same time, "Shut up." Just these two words gave people the feeling that the wind and clouds changed and the pressure of the mountains and rivers changed. The group of people couldn't stand still and took a step back together. Lu Yuan's face suddenly turned pale. She realized that the strength of these two people was actually unfathomable. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have the support of an expert. Lu Yuan said, "Send the signal and summon our people." No one stopped Lu Yuan and the group. Soon, the group sent the signal. Xi and Zhaoluan's face gradually darkened. He had been holding back and trying to resolve the situation, but the other party was unwilling to let him go. If it was just him, it would be fine, but there was a junior sister and a junior brother beside him. He couldn't hold back anymore. In just a few moments, two people arrived. One was a lean woman, and the other was a man with a huge head. When Lu Yuan saw the woman, she rushed over and hugged the woman. She said coquettishly, "Uncle Master, they're bullying me." The woman's gaze swept over them like a blade. With just one glance, her expression changed. Even with her cultivation, she couldn't see through Xi and Zhaoluan's cultivation. As for the other four, two of them had 8th ring, one 7th ring, and even the child had 3 true ring bodies. It was a frightening sight. Lu Yuan continued, "Uncle Master, kill them. Kill them." Lei Xingfeng shook his head slightly. He said, "Senior brother, she wants to kill us." The woman let go of Lu Yuan and walked in front of the 5 people. She said, "Lu Weihu, 8th ring true body, true heart master." The big-headed man beside Lu Weihu also stepped forward. Ba Tong, 9th ring true body, ashen seal enlightened master. Xi and Feng couldn't help but laugh bitterly in his heart. 8th or 9th ring true masters were as if they didn't cost anything. Why were they everywhere? In the past, he thought that true masters were amazing, but now it seemed like they weren't worth anything. They could be found all over the streets. Any one of them was an 8th or 9th ring true master. No wonder Master didn't allow him to run around alone. This world was truly dangerous. The opponent's methods were very formal, so Xi and Zhaoluan could only step forward and say, "Xi and Zhaoluan, 9th ring true body, ashen seal enlightened master." LV Yuan was immediately frightened. She covered her mouth and said, Xi Zhaoluan shook his head helplessly. 9th ring true body, it's nothing. You don't have to be so surprised. LV Yuan always thought that Xi and Zhaoluan was only slightly stronger than her, at most having 6th ring sage body. She didn't expect him to have 9th ring sage body. She always looked down on Xi and Zhaoluan, but she didn't expect him to be so strong. Xi and Zhaoluan sighed. "This is between me and Lu Yuan. Don't get involved. Let my junior sister and brother leave." Lu Yuan sneered. "Let them leave. With your strength, we can't keep you here. Stop dreaming, surrender." Xi and Zhaoluan sighed again. "If that's the case, then I have nothing to worry about." "Haha, do you really think you're going to eat us?" He let out a long howl. Suddenly, 30 people flew out from all directions of the city. In a few breaths, they surrounded Lu Yuan and the others. They were all high-level true masters. There were even 9th ring true masters. They all landed around Lu Yuan and the others. Ba Tong glanced at them, and his face turned pale. This group of people was too scary. This wasn't a strength that a big force could have. They were more like the disciples of a reclusive supermaster. No one dared to offend this kind of reclusive master. They rarely appeared, but when they did, their strength was terrifying to the extreme. Lu Weihu also panicked. The opponent's strength was beyond imagination. If they fought, she and Ba Tong might have a chance to escape, but the others couldn't. Even she and Ba Tong might not be able to escape. Ba Tong already had a plan in his mind. He couldn't fight. Once they fought, it would definitely be out of his control. The opponent's strength was enough to completely destroy his side. Even if he had more people, they still wouldn't have any chance of winning. He said, "Little Yuan, back off. This isn't something you can decide." LV Yuan didn't expect Xi and Zhaoluan to be so strong. She always thought that Exine Jalowin was just a cultivator without a sect, and that he was just a bit stronger. Relying on her sect's strength, she didn't hesitate to poison him. She didn't expect him to escape, and she didn't expect them to meet again so soon. Lei Xingfeng couldn't figure out why Exine Jalowin was so cowardly, but he clearly felt the killing intent from the opponent. If the guards didn't come quickly, he was sure that the opponent would have attacked without restraint. He couldn't help but whisper, "Senior brother, you called the guards back too early." Qi Meiyun's face was livid. She clearly heard the threat just now. With her temper, even if her junior sister Yinyao was unreasonable, she wouldn't hesitate to fight back. She had even less reason to back off from the threat of this group of unfamiliar experts. One must know that Qi Meiyun's personal guard was a 9th ring sage with an ashen seal. How could she be afraid of this group of people? She said, "Senior brother, since they want to kill me, how can we avoid them? Then let's kill them." Ba Tong understood. He shouted, "Wait." He walked to Lu Yuan's side and said, "What's going on?" Only now did he remember to ask why there was a conflict. If his strength suppressed everything, he wouldn't care who was in the right or wrong. He would kill first. Lu Yuan said, "He bullied me." Ba Tong said, "How did he bully you?" Lu Yuan said, he kissed me." Lei Xingfeng looked at Exine Jalowin in disbelief and said, "For this she used poison to besiege you and almost killed you? Senior brother, you are too." He couldn't say anything. "Senior brother, you're too cowardly." Chapter 110. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu looked at each other. This was too dramatic. He was a 9th ring expert. Even if he looked a little ugly, he shouldn't be like this. Qi Meiyun was completely stunned. She looked at Exine Jalowin in disbelief, and then at Lu Yuan. After a while, she said, "Damn it, what's going on?" Exine Jalowin's face was red. He was at a loss. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and thought, Otaku. This is a typical otaku. He doesn't know anything. Senior brother is so pitiful." Ba Tong said, "That's it." Lu Yuan said angrily, "Isn't that enough? He bullied me." Exine Jalowin said sadly, "I was presumptuous and made you suffer. From now on, you and I will no longer have anything to do with each other. It was wishful thinking on my part. Let's go our separate ways in the future." He was disheartened. Lei Xingfeng knew that it was better not to get involved in matters of the heart. With Exine Jalowin's strength, if he didn't have true feelings, he wouldn't be so easy to talk to. Qi Meiyun was about to go up and argue with him, but Lei Xingfeng grabbed her arm and whispered, "Senior sister, let senior brother handle it. If he wants to do it, then do it. If he wants to let go, then let go." Exine Jalowin looked at Lei Xingfeng gratefully. Even so, he didn't want to fight to the death with the other party. LV Yuan suddenly didn't know what to say. She had never felt that she had gone overboard, and had always thought that she had been wronged. With her status, killing the other party after being wronged was not a problem at all. However, when she found out that the other party's strength far exceeded her own, she didn't know how to deal with it. She was a spoiled woman. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu looked at each other again. Both of them were helpless. Lu Weihu said, "Since it didn't cause any losses, then forget it. This is just a small misunderstanding." Qi Meiyun couldn't help but say, "Misunderstanding? Do you know that your bullshit martial nephew poisoned my senior brother because of this? If it wasn't for Master, my senior brother would have died. Small misunderstanding? Mother asterisk cur. Just a kiss, and you're already so vicious. Who do you think you are? Will you die if you touch me? You look like a vixen. I don't know how you deceive my senior brother. My senior brother must have been blind to have fallen for you. You." Exine Jalowin hurriedly said, "Junior martial sister. Junior sister, forget it." Qi Meiyun was so angry that she stomped her feet. According to her temper, she wouldn't have quarreled with the other party. She would have just gone up and killed them. If it weren't for her senior brother stopping her, she wouldn't have just cursed them. Lu Yuan's face turned green. She had never been scolded like this in her entire life. She immediately exploded. Who do you think you are?" Before she could scold them, she was forcefully pulled to the side by Ba Tong. He scolded in a low voice, "Shut up." Lu Weihu also said in a low voice, "Little Yuan, don't be rash. We're not strong enough. We'll suffer if we act rashly." Lu Yuan clenched her teeth and said, "I'll kill him. I'll kill him." She hated Qi Meiyun and Xian Jiaoluan. Ba Tong said, "We'll talk when we get back. Now shut your mouth." Lu Yuan unwillingly retreated to the side. Even if she was furious, she had to endure it. If the conflict escalated, they would definitely be the ones to die. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu were very clear about this. With their knowledge and experience, how could they let the conflict escalate? It was almost the same as courting death. In fact, not only did Qi Meiyun want to make a move, even Lei Xingfeng wanted to make a move. The strength of this group of people was really not bad. Once they became enemies, it would be very troublesome. However, Xian Jiaoluan refused. Although he despaired of Lu Yuan, he did not want to kill them. There were strong people on both sides stopping them. Therefore, this battle was destined to be impossible. Lei Xingfeng muttered, "It would be good if Master was here." He believed that if Master was here, these people would not be able to survive. Qi Meiyun nodded vigorously. She was very dissatisfied with Xian Jiaoluan's cowardice. Xian Jiaoluan could not help but smile bitterly in his heart. He had lost all his face and was directly despised by his junior brothers and sisters. However, he did not regret it in his heart. He really did not want to kill Lu Yuan, even if she was so insidious. Both sides retreated. Soon, Ba Tong and Lu Weihu left with a group of people. Qi Meiyun looked unhappy and said, "It was not easy to find a group of opponents. Senior brother, just let them go. What a pity." Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior sister, do you want to fight?" Qi Meiyun said, "Nonsense, what a good opportunity. You were so confident." The opponent was weak. They were not weak to the extent that you could not make a move. They were good opponents. You could have happily tortured them. But senior brother wasted it. "AI, what a good opportunity, what a pity." Lei Xingfeng was stunned and said, "Don't you want to avenge senior brother?" Qi Meiyun said, "Revenge is just an excuse." "Humph, it's a pity that senior brother did not want to do it." Lei Xingfeng finally understood that Qi Meiyun was fighting for the sake of fighting. She did not care about any reason. It was good to have a reason. Even if there was no reason, she could still fight. This fellow was a bit violent. Moreover, she liked to fight weaker opponents and bully people. "Senior sister, there is still a chance. There is still a chance." Xian Feng didn't know what to say. His senior brother was a weirdo. His senior sister wasn't bad either. Both of them were of the highest quality. However, he didn't feel much resistance. He actually liked this kind of senior brother and senior sister. Qi Meiyun said, "Everyone disperse. Go find your own entertainment. Don't surround us." She shooed the guards away as if they were flies. She turned around and said, "Senior brother, you have to compensate me." Xian Jiaoluan said, "I'll treat you to a drink, okay?" Lei Xingfeng knew that Xian Jiaoluan was depressed. He said, Okay. Is there a hotel here?" Qi Meiyun muttered, "What's so good about drinking? Really?" In fact, she also knew that senior brother was sad, so she did not refuse to drink. Xian Jiaoluan said, "I know a big hotel. It's a hotel in Taimeng. Follow me." The five of them walked along the street. After walking for a few minutes, they saw a group of buildings. There was a big wooden sign with the word wine written on it. Lei Xingfeng said, "Is this the place?" Xian Jiaoluan said, "This is the place. Let's go to the place where cultivators drink." Cultivators did not drink with ordinary people. It was not that they looked down on ordinary people, but the distance between the two was too far. Therefore, this hotel had a special building for cultivators to eat and drink. Taimeng was very powerful here. In addition, Taimeng was also an organization of cultivators. Therefore, this hotel was a very good place for cultivators to transmit information. The hotel waiter had good eyesight. He immediately recognized that they were all cultivators and not ordinary ones. Therefore, he respectfully invited them to the hall at the back. There were no private rooms or anything like that. The hall was very spacious. There were about 100 tables. As soon as a guest came in, the waiter would immediately come in and block them with a screen. Therefore, the empty seats could be seen at a glance. Angeloan chose a big table by the window. Immediately, the waiter lifted a few screens and set up a small space. There was another table by the side, but it was blocked by a screen. Lei Xingfeng did not know who they were, but they could clearly hear the conversation next door. After all, it was just a screen. Sound could not be blocked. Other than Tai Ming, what other powerful sects are there? The clear voice was very familiar to Lei Xingfeng. The others also turned to look. Unfortunately, with the screen blocking them, they could not see anything. In just a few seconds, Qi Meiyin was the first to react. She said in surprise, "Xiao Yao." As she spoke, she pulled open the screen. Yin Yao was sitting on a chair. There were two people kneeling on the floor. They were both cultivators, but they were only Thousand Lun masters. They should have taught Yin Yao a lesson. Both of them had bruises on their noses and eyes that were filled with tears. Yin Yao also looked up in surprise. She suddenly shouted, "Wow, what a coincidence. Good, I finally caught you. Senior, you said you would bring me out. Why did you sneak away?" Angeloan was speechless. He was not a quick-witted person. After stuttering for a long time, he said, "When we left, we looked for you. We said you went out, so forget it." Yin Yao said angrily, "Senior, you're talking nonsense. I've been waiting at home. I didn't go anywhere. Senior, you're bullying me." Angeloan's head was about to explode. He hurriedly said, "It's my fault. I'll apologize to junior sister." Yin Yao snorted. She rolled her eyes and said, "Senior, you have to compensate me." Lei Xingfeng could not help but laugh. With Senior's temper, he would definitely be taken advantage of by these two junior sisters. Angeloan hurriedly said, Of course. What does junior sister want? I'll find it for you." Hee hee. Qi Meiyin rolled her eyes and said, "What's there to compensate? Don't you know that you're very annoying? No one likes to bring you out." Yin Yao was so angry that she got up and rushed over, saying, "I'll kill you." Angeloan waved his hand and separated the two. He said with a headache, "Junior sisters, don't make trouble. I'm old and can't stand you. Sit down and get ready to eat." Lei Xingfeng pondered in his heart. He could not understand why Qi Meiyin and Yin Yao were like firewood and fire whenever they met. It was as if they would not have peace if they did not fight at least once. Moreover, he could also see that although the two of them were fighting fiercely, if they encountered an enemy, they would immediately join forces to fight. He wisely hid aside. Only a fool would interfere. It was better not to get involved in a fight between women. Angeloan was senior, and he could not ignore it. Therefore, he forcibly separated the two of them. Yin Yao and Qi Meiyin also understood that with senior, they would not fight. The two of them found a chair and sat down resentfully. Yin Yao said to the two cultivators, "Get out. All right, pay the bill later. Remember, don't even think about running away." The two cultivators felt as if they had been pardoned. They said repeatedly, "We don't dare. We don't dare." The two of them ran away as if they had pissed their pants. However, they did not dare to leave the hotel. Instead, they found the boss and paid for Yin Yao's banquet. The two of them were very clear that the other party's strength was boundless. The two of them were not a match at all. If they did not want to die, they had to follow the other party's instructions. All kinds of dishes were served. Lei Xingfeng said, "Well, we haven't ordered yet, have we?" Chapter 111. Yin Yao said, "Someone is treating us. Why do you have so much to say when you're eating for free?" Lei Xingfeng could not help but curse. "You are the idiot." However, he did not have the courage to scold his senior sister directly. He knew that this senior sister was a demoness who killed without batting an eyelid. The dishes tasted very good. Lei Xingfeng ate in big mouthfuls. He was very satisfied with his strong digestive ability in this world because it meant that as long as he liked a certain dish, he could eat it all in one go. Of course, this strong digestive ability also made him suffer a lot when he first arrived in this world. At that time, his biggest headache was not having enough food. It was simply unbearable. A large wooden plate was brought up. There were a total of 5 roasted chickens. Everyone present were practitioners, and no matter male or female, their appetites were all terrifying. With one roasted chicken per person, it only took them a few minutes to finish it all. Xi and Feng could not help but praise. This roasted chicken is truly delicious. Yin Yao said, then let's have another plate. Immediately, a waiter brought over another plate. Lei Xingfeng was full of praise as he ate. His requirements were actually very low. As long as the taste was okay and he could eat until he was full, it would be good enough. If it was delicious, then he would have profited. Cultivators did not have many rules when it came to eating. There were very few cultivators who ate slowly, so the meal was over in half an hour. Lei Xingfeng touched his stomach. It was about 80% full. He was very satisfied. In his life, he had only eaten until he was full 2 or 3 times. Most of the time, he was not full. If he could eat until he was 80% full, then he would have used up a lot of food. Fortunately, he did not lack money now, so he could eat as much as he wanted. Lei Xingfeng finally got rid of the fear of hunger. The others were obviously not as confused as Lei Xingfeng. They ate very sparingly. Even so, the table was full of empty wooden plates. Brother Exine? Haha, it really is Brother Exine. I didn't believe it, but I didn't expect it to be true. A man opened the screen and said happily. Exine also stood up and said, Ferran, haha, your nose is quite sharp. How did you know I was here? Ferran was a big man. He was wearing a large gray linen robe. He was not eye-catching at all, but his figure was extremely majestic. He had a square head, a big face, thick eyebrows, a wide mouth, and a pair of bright eyes. He seemed very happy. He said, you came to my territory, but you didn't say anything. That's not good. Xi and Xiaolun laughed and said, we just arrived. We were going to look for you after we finished eating. Who knew that you would come looking for us yourself? Haha. Ferran thought, how could I not know about the sudden appearance of such a powerful group of fellows? He said, it's a group of ignorant subordinates. When they saw you, they were so scared that they hurriedly reported it. I was still wondering which group of great masters came. I didn't expect it to be you, old brother, huh? He was also glad that the people who came were people he knew. If they were unfamiliar masters, he would have a headache. Xi and Xiaolun said, it's not just us. Come, sit down. Let's talk. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Ferran certainly knew that there was another group of masters, but he recognized them. He sat down with a smile, looked around, and said, these people are very unfamiliar. Are you old brother's friends? Xi and Xiaolun said, let me introduce you. My junior sister, Qi Meiyun, Yin Yao, little junior brother, Lei Xingfeng. And you can call him Big Brother Fei. He's a local snake. Huh, he's the biggest local snake. In this area, no matter what happens, he can solve it. Qi Meiyun, Yin Yao, and Lei Xingfeng stood up and bowed. Lei Xingfeng understood that this was the power of connections. No matter where, as long as you have the help of a local snake, you would be able to get a lot of help. He wouldn't reject such a good thing. Ferran smiled and bowed. He looked at Tiger Love and Mad Eagle. These two had similar strength as him. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Let me introduce you. This is Tiger Love. This is Mad Eagle. Haha, they're both true heart Yin masters with 8 ring bodies. Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. Mad Eagle said, don't mind us. We're A Feng's guards. Ferran's legs went soft. 2 true heart Yin masters with 8 ring bodies as guards. Could you be any more extravagant? Even if you want to scare people, you shouldn't do it like this. In the entire Taiming, he was the only old ancestor level expert with 8 ring bodies and true heart Yin masters. These 2 guard were twice as strong as him. What was there to say? His heart was in a mess. Only now did he realize how strong Xi and Xiaolun's background was. Lei Xingfeng found that Ferran's smile was even more amiable and gentle. His attitude also seemed to have improved. Fei Luan's attitude was not bad. These people were enough to destroy a city. Moreover, if he could form a relationship with these experts, the benefits would only be greater. It was obvious that these people were not from sect. Sects rarely had such powerful forces. Only those sects that lived in seclusion or a group of experts that had been raised by a super expert. After chatting for a while, Lei Xingfeng found that the sects on this continent weren't that strong. It was just that they controlled a large area and could bring in a lot of resources. Following that, Lei Xingfeng faintly discovered that the status of these sects was actually at the bottom of this world. They were only slightly stronger than normal people. This was because Xi and Jiaolun and Faran were trading large amounts of goods. The currency used was also something that Lei Xingfeng had never seen before. It was even his first time hearing about it. Luan ring, Luanin ring, Yin ring. It was completely different from the gold, silver, and bronze rings of the normal world. Its value was much higher. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What are Luan rings, Luanin rings, and Yin rings?" "Let me see." Xi and Jiaolun smiled. "That's the currency used by us high-level cultivators. It can be used for cultivation. With your level, you can't make them yourself. At the very least, only true monarchs can barely make ashen seal." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, ninth ring true body? True monarch? Xi and Jiaolun said, "Yes, it can allow cultivators to absorb it and quickly increase their cultivation." Faran said, "Using this method can increase the number of experts. However, there's a huge flaw. It's very difficult to use this method to reach ninth ring true body." In other words, this kind of ring is useless at ninth ring true body. At most, it can be used to prolong one's life. Lei Xingfeng turned around and asked, "Uncle Tiger, Uncleing, what kind of rings do you use?" Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. "Yes, a phone. We use Luan rings, Luanin rings, and Yin rings to cultivate. We're different from you." Xi and Jiaolun said, "A phone, you're not allowed to use this. Otherwise, Master will go crazy." Lei Xingfeng immediately understood why Master gathered so many experts. So this was the reason. True direct disciples definitely couldn't use these methods to cultivate. The reason why there were so few experts in the various sects was because they didn't have these rings. In other words, these rings were very rare and couldn't be supplied in large quantities. They had to be exchanged with large amounts of resources. He asked, "Senior sister, you haven't used them either?" Chi Meiyin said, "Don't be silly. If you use those things, once you reach ninth ring true body, you can forget about advancing." Faran smiled bitterly. "That's for people like us to use." This is already a great thing. In the sects, only extremely talented people are qualified to use them. If they're ordinary, they won't be able to use them at all. Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior brother, can I ask Master for them?" Xi and Jiaolun said, "What do you want?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Those rings." Yin Yao interrupted, "Little idiot, you already have one. All of us direct disciples have one. There's a lot. You didn't take it yourself." Lei Xingfeng was a little confused for a moment. He said, "Aren't we not allowed to use them? Why do I have one?" Yin Yao raised her hand and knocked him on the head. "You're still not convinced, little idiot. Can't you use them yourself? Can't you give yourself credit? Can't you go shopping?" Xi and Feng was suddenly enlightened. He found it funny. Money can move a person's heart. He nodded and laughed. That's right, that's right. Senior sister, how many rings can I get?" At that moment, he became extremely greedy. Xi and Jiaolun said, "Go home and ask your housekeeper. He should be able to get them." Lei Xingfeng said, "Sai Ishannel, he didn't tell me. I'll settle this with him when I get back." "All right, those rings, someone show me." Xi and Jiaolun took out 3 types of rings and handed them to Lei Xingfeng. She also told him which one was a Luan ring, which one was a Yin ring, and which one was a Luanin ring. The Luan rings were very easy to identify. They were completely transparent, like glass products from his previous world. They were round and hollow, one size larger than a coin from his previous world. Holding them in his hand, he felt a cool sensation. The Luan Yin rings had 7 colors. They were translucent and were the same size as the Luan rings. Looking at them carefully, each layer was like an onion. Every layer had a different color. Under the refraction of light, they looked exceptionally beautiful. The Yin rings were completely different. They were deep purple like jade, but had a metallic texture. They gave off a strange feeling of luxury. Xi and Jiaolun said, "Don't use your Luan force. Otherwise, it will quickly absorb them." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "I understand. I won't do that." Xi and Jalowin said, "Actually, you don't have to be nervous. As long as you don't use them to increase your cultivation, it'll be fine. When you're in danger, for example, when your Luanine force is completely exhausted, these things can be of great help. They can quickly replenish your lost Luanine force." Lei Xingfeng finally understood why these things were so valuable. Not only could they increase one's cultivation, they could also be used as a medicine to replenish one's strength. It was no wonder that he didn't know about them. Those who had these things would definitely hide them well. They definitely wouldn't use them casually. If the golden and silver rings were cash, then these things were like checks. Lei Xingfeng asked, "How do I exchange them?" Qi Meiyan giggled. "It's not expensive. 100 golden rings can be exchanged for 1 Luan ring. Of course, whether or not there's anyone to exchange with you is another matter. As for the exchange between Luan rings and Luanine rings, 10,000 Luan rings for 1 Luanine ring, 1 Luanine ring for 1 Ine ring, that's 10,000 for 1. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but click his tongue. 10,000 for 1? That's too much. Chapter 112. Farhan said, "It's not an exaggeration. Actually, if Brother Xian is willing, I'd rather have Ine rings. Not to mention 10,000 Ine rings for 1 Ine ring. Even if it was 11,000 Ine rings for 1 Ine ring, I'd still do it. It's definitely worth it." Farhan said, "In your dreams. I don't even have that many Ine rings. If I use them in many places, I won't have enough. A phone, if you can use Luan rings, don't use Ine rings. If you can use Luan rings, don't use Ine rings. Especially Ine rings, don't use a single Ine ring." Lei Xingfeng clicked his tongue. "They're that precious?" Qi Meiyan laughed. Yin Yao said, "You don't know anything, little idiot." Farhan shook his head with a wry smile. He really was an ignorant brat. He asked curiously, "How old are you?" He thought that Lei Xingfeng only looked young, so he shouldn't be that young. So he asked subconsciously. Lei Xingfeng was still immersed in the preciousness of Ine rings, so he didn't answer. Xi and Jalowin said, "He's only 17. Farhan couldn't help but let out a strange cry. What? He was shocked. A 17-year-old with 3 true ring bodies. He was sure that Lei Xingfeng didn't use Luan rings or anything like that. Even if he did, he couldn't have reached such heights. The initial age of cultivation was the same everywhere. Before the age of 16, there was no need to even think about cultivating. Forcing oneself to cultivate not only had poor results, it could even lead to death. In other words, Lei Xingfeng had cultivated for more than a year, definitely less than 2 years. What kind of talent did he have to reach such a level? He couldn't imagine it at all. He wasn't a low-level practitioner. He controlled a large organization and had seen countless practitioners. It was his first time seeing such an unbelievable genius. No wonder it was the address of a hidden expert. Lei Xingfeng actually knew that he had advanced too quickly. Although his foundation wasn't unstable, his battle strength was still too weak. He couldn't compare to others who climbed up step by step. However, he still had a huge advantage. He relied on his own level to suppress his opponent. He used the simplest and most violent method to fight. Yin Yao said softly, "What's there to be surprised about?" She was actually even more surprised than Farhan. With her level of cultivation, she hadn't even reached 1,000 Luan Master at 17. She had only reached 1,000 Luan Master at 18. So when she heard Lei Xingfeng's level, she felt dizzy for a day. Her heart was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Farhan and Xi and Jalowin started discussing again. It was rare for Xi and Jalowin to come. If he let him go so easily, he wouldn't be Farhan. Not all experts had Ine rings, especially those who had large amounts of Luan, and Ine rings. Xi and Jalowin was like a moving treasury, so he couldn't wait for them to go to the Tai Meng headquarters. He couldn't wait to make the transaction in the hotel. In just a moment, the two had completed the transaction. Xi and Feng looked at him coldly. This time, Xi and Jalowin only paid a few dozen Luanine rings, not a single Ine ring. Fei Luan had a dissatisfied expression. He really wanted a Ine ring, but unfortunately, The items he collected weren't enough to exchange for a yin ring. Xi and Xiaolun's expression was clearly satisfied. He said, "Okay, let's go to Brother Fei's Time Ming today. Hee, his place is better than the hotel." Ferran smiled. "Of course. If you don't come at Time Ming by the time you reach Yicheng, that won't do. Hee, everyone please." During the few days in Time Ming, Lei Xingfeng didn't leave his house. He had been thinking about how to find Yi and his sister. He regretted that he hadn't agreed on a place to meet up if they got separated. His sister had been taken away directly. He didn't know where she was taken. It seemed to be the Wanxi continent, but the Wanxi continent was incomparably large. Without a clear location, finding his sister would be like finding a needle in a haystack. It was an almost impossible task. Other than thinking about how to find his sister, Lei Xingfeng spent the rest of his time reading the Star Python records. The newly obtained records were definitely very powerful. There were many records he had never heard of before. There were also various techniques and methods for refining items. He only had a rough understanding of them. He planned to study them in detail when he was completely free. Right now, he could only skim through them briefly. Even so, he estimated that it would take at least a few months. After a few days of reading, Lei Xingfeng didn't come up empty-handed. He found a record in the Star Python records. It was a bone he had obtained in the ancient Hidden Luin. It looked like the bone of an astral beast recorded in the Star Python records. If he wanted to be sure, he would need to do some small experiments. However, he was almost certain that the bone he had obtained was from that astral beast. It could be used to make weapons. According to the records, this bone could be used to make the tip of a lightning spear. Lei Xingfeng also needed a spear handle. This spear handle couldn't be replaced by pure steel. He needed to find a few materials to make it. It needed a certain ratio. He also needed the help of a fire attribute expert to make it. Luckily, fire attribute experts were easy to find. Especially after becoming a disciple, it was even easier to find a truly powerful fire attribute expert. Lei Xingfeng started to organize his Hidden Luin space. For a moment, he was troubled by the things in his Hidden Luin space. There were too many things, and he didn't know how to organize them. Most of them were obtained from the ancient Hidden Luin space. He sorted them out carefully. Lei Xingfeng was someone who liked cleanliness and order in his previous life. In this life, he was much more lazy. That was why his Hidden Luin space was so messy. It took a long time to organize. One must know that his Hidden Luin space was no longer the small space it used to be. After becoming a true master, his Hidden Luin space expanded many times. That was why all the things were scattered in the space. He needed to organize them bit by bit. Just as Lei Xingfeng was busy organizing, Xi and Xiaolun came looking for him. "A phone, are you free?" Lei Xingfeng said. "Senior brother, what's the matter?" He was very curious. Ever since he came to the center of Time Ming, he didn't see his two senior sisters. He didn't know where they want to play. Xi and Xiaolun laughed. "If you're free, come with me. There's something fun to do." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What kind of fun?" "If it's shopping, then forget it. If it's a fight, in I'll go." Xi and Xiaolun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What? Everything is fine. Why would they fight?" He immediately reacted and said, "They left a long time ago. How could they fight?" Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Okay, then what are we going to do?" Xi and Xiaolun said, "Time Ming is accepting disciples. Brother Fei said that if there are disciples with good potential, he can give them to us. How about it? Are you going?" Lei Xingfeng didn't understand. He said, "You want to accept disciples?" Xi and Xiaolun said, "Why would I accept disciples? You don't need to have people under you in the future. If there are people with good potential, you can take them and train them. Won't you have people to use then?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't lack people either." Xi and Xiaolun couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "A phone. Don't you understand? What Master gives you is different from what you train yourself. In the future, if Master has any problems, you'll have your own people." Lei Xingfeng's heart jumped. He asked, This is training my own power? Does Master allow it?" Xi and Xiaolun said, "Nonsense, of course Master allows it. Master even encourages it. Are you going or not? If not, I'll go by myself." He was slightly impatient. Lei Xingfeng said straightforwardly. Of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I go? Hee. Lei Xingfeng immediately understood. This was a good opportunity to train his own power. Why would he reject it? Although he didn't know how many Luan, and Yin rings he would get, he was sure that using them to train his subordinates wouldn't be a problem. If he started training them now, after 10 years, he would have a group of subordinates that he could use. No matter what he did in the future, having a group of subordinates and not having any subordinates were two completely different concepts. The two sat in Tai Meng's car and quickly arrived at Tai Meng's manor outside the city. The annual disciple recruitment was a very grand event in Tai Meng. Every year, Tai Meng would recruit a group of disciples. In the area under Tai Meng's control, there were more than 10 million people. Every year, even if only 1% of the population reached the age of 16 and could cultivate, there would still be more than 100,000 people. Among them, there would be about 10,000 people who had the qualifications to cultivate. Among them, there would at least be a few hundred, if not 1,000 people who were suitable to be recruited. Among a few hundred people, there would be a few with good potential. It wasn't a rare thing. Farhan had this plan. He wanted to sell some of the disciples who were waiting to be recruited. He needed Luan rings, Luanine rings, and Yin rings. Unfortunately, even if he sold these disciples, he wouldn't be able to get Yin rings. Of course, if there were really talented disciples, he wouldn't be willing to trade them for Yin rings. Lei Xingfeng and Xi and Zhaoluan got out of the car. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Where did the senior sisters go?" Xi and Zhaoluan said, "Who knows? Maybe they found a place to fight again." Sigh. I can't do anything about them. As long as they don't die, I don't think Master will blame me. Lei Xingfeng's scalp went numb. He was the victim. These two senior sisters were crazy when they fought. He huffed. I don't know what kind of grudge those two have, Xi and Zhaoluan said. They don't have any grudges. They just don't like each other. Plus, there were a few small things that caused it to escalate to this point. They fight whenever they see each other. If Master and Senior brothers aren't here, they'll fight like crazy. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Talking about this gives me a headache. Farhan led a large group of more than 100 people to welcome them. He shouted, "Brother Xian, a phone, come here." Lei Xingfeng realized that the people behind Farhan were all staring at him curiously. Xi and Zhaoluan nodded. "Brother Fei, how's the preparation?" Farhan smiled. "It's going to start soon. Brother Xian, a phone. Let me introduce you." He pointed to an old man beside him, Tai Meng's great leader, Han Tian Chop, great leader Han. Our Tai Meng's famous true Yin master. Lei Xingfeng thought, true Yin master, a true Yin master with 6 true ring bodies. In this big sect, he can already be the great leader. Although there's still a great elder like Farhan above him, in Tai Meng, he's probably a big shot. Chapter 113. Xi and Zhaoluan nodded indifferently. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you." Farhan introduced. "This is my older brother, Xi and Zhaoluan, a 9th ring sage with the Ashen Seal." There was an uproar in this group of people. Most of them were experts with 1 or 2 true ring bodies. A few of them were experts with 3 or 4 true ring bodies, and a few of them were experts with 5 or 6 true ring bodies. Above them was Farhan, Tai Meng's only expert with 8 true ring bodies, a true hardy master. Who would have thought that this ordinary-looking half-bald old man would be a terrifying 9th ring sage with the Ashen Seal? This was too frightening. Farhan said, "Quiet." Everyone looked at Xi and Zhaoluan with eyes full of respect. This was very clear. Lei Xingfeng also knew that in this world, strong people were extremely worshipped. It was similar to the people in his previous world who worshipped money. When they saw rich people, they would be envious and jealous. This world didn't care too much about money, because this world was very big and it was relatively easy to obtain food. Instead, people with strength were envious and respectful. Farhan said, "This is Senior Xian's junior brother, Lei Xingfeng, 17 years old with 3 true ring bodies, a true Lun Yin master." Another bomb, another uproar. It took a while for the crowd to calm down. Lei Xingfeng tried his best to maintain a smile, but in his heart, he was cursing. He didn't want to be in the limelight at all. Next was to meet each other. Ferran patiently introduced the upper echelons of Tai Meng to the two. Xian Jialuan and Lei Xingfeng became the most respected guests of Tai Meng. With Xian Jialuan's strength, he was definitely a senior expert, and Lei Xingfeng was also Xian Jialuan's junior brother, so he was respected as a senior. After a while, Lei Xingfeng was about to break out in cold sweat. He snuck a glance at Xian Jialuan and saw that his senior brother was also impatient in this kind of situation, but to give Ferran some face, he forced himself to endure. Seeing his senior brother's painful expression, Lei Xingfeng immediately felt much better. Lei Xingfeng had the experience of his previous life, so he wasn't unfamiliar with social interactions. If he was really a wild brat from the mountains, he would have turned around and left. Xian Jialuan saw Lei Xingfeng conversing with people and was very curious. This child seemed to have seen the world. He wasn't anxious or impatient, and had the appearance of a big shot. Don't look at his young face, but whether it was his speech or expression, it matched the strength of a true Luan Yin master. After a round, Lei Xingfeng was so busy that he broke out in cold sweat. He didn't remember many people. After all, there were too many people. Almost all the important people of Tai Meng were here. Other than Tai Meng's great leader Han Tian Chop, Xian Jialuan didn't remember anyone else. He also didn't want to remember, because if he left here, he didn't know when he would return. Generally speaking, in a place, having a friend with a high enough status was enough. After a long time of meeting, Ferran brought the group back to the manor. On the way, they saw a lot of carriages heading towards the manor. There were all kinds of carriages, horse carriages, ox carts, carts, horses, and so on. It was bustling with activity and was very lively. There were a lot of Tai Meng disciples maintaining the security. Very quickly, Ferran and the rest arrived at the back of the manor. In this group of people, most of them had already dispersed. They all had their own missions. As for the top 10 people, they were the most idle people. These people were chatting in the back hall, waiting for the selection in front. Lei Xingfeng was bored sitting there, so he said, "I'll go take a look in front." Ferran immediately ordered a few Tai Meng disciples to accompany him. These Tai Meng disciples were all direct disciples of the inner hall. Their status in Tai Meng was not ordinary. Of course, their status couldn't be compared to Lei Xingfeng's. The person leading them was a disciple of Tai Meng's great leader. His name was Arctic Harrier. He was 25 years old this year, a mill-wheel master, almost able to condense a true ring body. He was a famous genius disciple in Tai Meng. Arctic Harrier already knew that Lei Xingfeng was a 17-year-old true Luan Yin master. If Lei Xingfeng was only slightly older than him, he wouldn't have accepted it. But Lei Xingfeng was much younger than him, a full 8 years difference. He didn't dare to imagine what heights Lei Xingfeng would reach in another 8 years. The two of them couldn't be compared at all. Thus, Arctic Harrier was very polite to Lei Xingfeng. He politely led Lei Xingfeng to the front yard of the manor. The entire manor was very large. There was a large lawn that covered an area of more than 1,000 square meters, and it was filled with people. Lei Xingfeng had never seen a big sect recruiting disciples before. He said, "Brother Han, are these the disciples you want to recruit?" The reason why he called him Brother Han was because he was older than him. He wouldn't act like a senior. It was meaningless to him. Of course, he also called Arctic Harrier's master, Han Tian Chop, Brother Han. Arctic Harrier felt very comfortable in his heart. No matter who it was, no matter which world, no one wouldn't like good words. When Lei Xingfeng called him Brother Han, Arctic Harrier felt very comfortable. He said, "Brother Lei, these people aren't confirmed to be recruited into the Tai Meng. Most of them will be sent back. Only those with single attributes will be accepted. The rest will depend on luck." The reason why he called him Brother Lei was a form of respect, even if Lei Xingfeng was younger than him, but calling him Brother Lei meant that he didn't dare to take the lead. Lei Xingfeng nodded, smiled, and said, "How many disciples do you recruit every year?" Cold Sparrow said, "Not many. It depends on the aptitude. I remember that in the most recent year, he took in 600 people. Among them, more than 100 had single attribute aptitude. I don't know why there were so many people with single attribute aptitude that year. In other years, it's hard to say. At the very least, he took in less than 100 people. There were only 7 or 8 people with single attribute aptitude. Lei Xingfeng said, "Where is the testing?" Arctic Harrier led the other disciples and said, "Follow me. Please, Brother Lei, follow me, and you will know." Soon, they arrived at the testing hall. There was already a long queue outside, and Arctic Harrier swaggered in. When the cultivators guarding the door saw Arctic Harrier, they all saluted. It was obvious that Arctic Harrier had a very high status among the low-level disciples. There was a row of chairs in the hall, and there were a few people sitting there. They were all Tai Meng's real people that Lei Xingfeng had seen before. When they saw Lei Xingfeng enter, they all stood up and greeted him. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "I'm just curious. Don't mind me, you guys go ahead." A disciple brought a chair over and invited Lei Xingfeng to sit down. The testing was very simple. There was a star python drum and a jade-colored pillar. The testing disciple just had to place his hand on the jade-colored pillar, and he would get an evaluation. If he hit the star python drum with his palm, he would get an evaluation of his potential. It was very accurate. The jade-colored pillar was used to test one's attributes. If he put his hand on it, he would get 1 color for a single attribute, 2 colors for a double attribute, and 3 colors for a triple attribute. It was very clear that he couldn't cheat. Generally speaking, those with 3 colors were on the verge of being eliminated. As for those with 4 colors and 4 attributes, they would be sent home. Lei Xingfeng happened to see a person with 2 colors. The young man's face was filled with ecstasy. The Tai Meng disciple beside the jade-colored pillar said, "Go to the star python drum and hit it with all your might." The young man agreed. He went to the star python drum and hit it with all his might. The star python drum was about 1 meter in diameter and hung on a steel frame. Its shape didn't look like a drum, but more like a gong. It was made of star python drum skin, and the surface of the drum was black. There wasn't anything special about it. This was a treasure that every large sect had. Generally speaking, the bigger the star python drum, the more accurate the test would be. The young man hit the surface of the drum with his fist. A low rumbling sound was heard. This was also the first time Lei Xingfeng saw the star python drum being tested. Therefore, he focused on the surface of the drum. He saw the young man hit the drum with his fist, and a ripple appeared on the surface of the drum. Following that, another ripple appeared, and the last ripple was almost invisible. A Tai Meng disciple beside him said, "2 ripples of strength. Your aptitude is above average." The young man's face instantly turned pale. Following that, the Tai Meng disciple said, "Go and report to the outer sect. You're quite lucky. There's been a shortage of people recently. With your aptitude, it'll be difficult for you to enter the outer sect." Arctic Harrier also sat beside Lei Xingfeng. He smiled and said, "Brother Lei, have you been tested before?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "This is the first time I've seen the star python drum. I've never seen it before." Han Yin said, "This stage is the most deadly. Those with only 1 element will be tested and have poor aptitude and can only enter the outer sect. Some with 2 elements will have good aptitude and can enter the inner sect directly and can even become a personal disciple. We here call the star python drum the deadly drum." Lei Xingfeng asked, "What's above average aptitude?" Arctic Harrier said, 9 ripples, definitely above average aptitude." Another young man stepped forward and punched the star python drum. Ripples appeared one after another. A total of 4 ripples appeared, but the last ripple was already very weak. The Tai Meng disciple beside him said, "Below average aptitude, single attribute can enter the inner sect." Immediately, the young man was so emotional that he shed tears. Entering the inner sect meant that he had entered a world of cultivation. His life would be completely changed. One by one, the young men went through the test. Lei Xingfeng realized that until now, no one had been able to hit 9 ripples, which meant that their aptitude was above average. He said, "Brother Han, more than 10 people have already gone through. Why hasn't anyone reached the top?" Arctic Harrier was speechless. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said, Let's not talk about more than 10 people. If there is even one above average aptitude in this round of recruitment, you will realize that the whole time Mang will be shaken. At that time, there will be countless old guys coming to snatch disciples. Lei Xingfeng said, so few? Arctic Harrier said, not to mention above average aptitude. Even if it's above average or below average aptitude, there will be countless people fighting over it. As long as it's above average aptitude, it's a good aptitude. If it's a single attribute, it's even more impressive. 3 attributes. Yes, go to the star python drum and hit it with all your might. A young girl asked timidly, Brother, do I pass? Not yet. You have to go to the star python drum to confirm your aptitude. If it's good, there's still hope. This was an extremely skinny young girl. She looked like she was only 11 or 12 years old. One look, and you could tell that she was malnourished. Lei Xingfeng asked softly, How old do you need to be able to come here to take the test? Arctic Harrier said, At least 14 years old. Usually 15 years old. 16 years old is a little late. This is because before you officially start cultivating, you need a certain amount of training. Otherwise, your body won't be able to take it. Brother Lei should understand this. Chapter 114. 1 to 2 years should be enough. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He knew that the girl in front of him should be 14 years old. The girl walked to the front of the star python drum. She looked at her fist, then looked at the star python drum. She mustered up her courage and hit the drum. Actually, the number of ripples that appeared had nothing to do with the strength used. It was related to one's aptitude. The star python drum specialty was that as long as you used a little strength, it would reflect your potential and aptitude. It was a very strange characteristic. 1 ripple, another ripple. 6 ripples appeared consecutively. The last ripple was almost invisible. The Tai Meng disciple was shocked. He said aptitude, above average. There was an uproar. This was the first disciple with an above average aptitude. After the uproar, there were sighs. 3 attributes. Even if she had an above average aptitude, it would be very troublesome to cultivate. The Tai Meng disciple kept shaking his head. 3 attributes. This was too much. If she had 2 attributes, even if she couldn't become a personal disciple, she would at least be an inner disciple. But 3 attributes were more troublesome. He hesitated and didn't classify the girl as an outer disciple. Instead, he said 3 attributes. Above average aptitude. Pending. Arctic Harrier also said, It's a pity. Sigh, this girl is at a disadvantage. How can she have 3 attributes? Such a pity. Above average aptitude. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Above average aptitude is already good enough. He knew that just 1 attribute was far from enough. If her aptitude wasn't good enough, her cultivation would be slow. He said, Give me a copy of the girl's information. Arctic Harrier nodded. No problem. Brother Lei, what are you doing? Lei Xingfeng said, Yes, I might take some people back. It depends on fate. Arctic Harrier was puzzled. He could not understand how Lei Xingfeng could accept a disciple that Tai Meng wanted. At his level, he did not have access to the decisions of the Tai Meng higher-ups. However, this was not his main concern. He immediately waved his hand and called for a Tai Meng disciple to retrieve the information on the young lady. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng saw the head of Tai Meng walking over with Exinjuan and Ferran. Behind them were a group of Tai Meng higher-ups. Everyone in the hall stood up and went out to welcome them. Lei Xingfeng also followed them to the entrance of the hall. Exinjuan smiled and said, A phone. Have you seen anyone with good aptitude? Lei Xingfeng said, One of them is all right. It's a pity that her attributes are not good enough. She has 3 attributes, but her aptitude is above average. Exinjuan said, 3 attributes a little lacking. She has 2 attributes, and her potential is above average. That's more like it. Let's forget about the rest. It's too difficult to nurture her, and it will consume a lot of resources. Lei Xingfeng did not have any experience in nurturing people. He said, Let's wait and see. I don't know much about it either. Everyone entered the testing hall. Some Tai Ming disciples brought chairs over and sat down. At this moment, no matter if it was the people who came to take the test or the Tai Ming disciples in the hall, all of them were unusually nervous. A perfected person said loudly, "Don't be nervous. Did you see that? The head of the sect and the elder are here. If your aptitude is good, you guys will benefit. You might even be taken in as a disciple on the spot." Instantly, there was a flurry of discussion from the hall to the outside. The people who were waiting to take the test in the field were excited. What a joke. The head of the Tai Ming and the elder were usually nowhere to be seen. But this time, they actually came to the testing hall. They were supposed to wait until the end of the test before gathering those with good aptitudes and potential to make a decision. But now, if they passed the test, they would be taken in as a disciple immediately. One by one, the young boys and girls walked into the hall. Everyone had a nervous expression on their faces. Even though there were Tai Ming disciples comforting them, it was of little use. No one could relax. This was a moment that could change one's fate. It was equivalent to a new start in life. Once one was taken in as a disciple, no matter who it was, their life would change drastically. Not only would their lives change, but their families would also change greatly. Lei Xingfeng knew that in this type of test, hard work would not guarantee a good result. Regardless of whether one worked hard or not, one's potential and aptitude had already determined one's fate. When a muscular young man walked in, these perfected persons could already tell what his aptitude and potential was just by relying on their outstanding eyesight. However, this was not accurate. If he went through the test, it would be completely different. The test would be able to detect even the slightest change. Therefore, when the young man walked in, almost all the perfected persons straightened their bodies. They could tell that this child's potential and aptitude were not bad. As expected, the Tai Ming disciple who was taking the test shouted, "Single attribute! Single attribute fire!" Immediately after, the young man punched the star python drum. Ripples appeared on the drum. The Tai Ming disciple said loudly, "Above average aptitude." He shook his head and said softly, "What a pity." Lei Xingfeng nodded silently. It was indeed a pity. If his aptitude was below average, everyone here would have started fighting for him. However, this aptitude was already not bad. The Tai Ming disciple said, "Entering the inner sect is pending." The so-called pending was to see if an expert would take him in as a personal disciple. This treatment was higher than that of an inner sect disciple. The conditions were also much better. With an expert backing him, his status in the Tai Ming was completely different. The young man's face was filled with excitement. He stomped his foot and waved his fist. Before he left, he did not forget to bow to the expert sitting on the chair, leaving a good impression on everyone. At this moment, a young girl walked in. She looked petite and dainty, and her face was filled with confidence. Lei Xingfeng suddenly stood up and stared at her. Xi and Jiaoluan said, "A phone, what's the matter?" Ferran also asked curiously, "An acquaintance?" Lei Xingfeng walked directly to the young girl and asked, "What's your name?" The young girl suddenly became nervous. She took a step back and said, "Who are you?" A Tai Ming disciple beside her scolded softly, "Don't talk nonsense. Senior asked you a question, so just answer." The young girl was shocked. She did not expect someone who was about the same age as her to be addressed as a senior. She did not dare to be rude and said, "Disciple." Disciple's name is Han Jiao. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Let's test it first." Han Jiao did not understand, but she still placed her palm on the jade-colored pillar. Suddenly, a silver light flashed. The Tai Ming disciple said in surprise, "Lightning attribute? Single lightning attribute. How rare." Everyone immediately understood why Lei Xingfeng stood up. Everyone could sense that Lei Xingfeng also had a single lightning attribute. Lei Xingfeng said, "Punch the star python drum. Don't use too much strength, just hit the center." Han Jiao waved her small fist and hit the center of the star python drum. Circles of ripples appeared. Lei Xingfeng stared at it and secretly counted the number of circles. There were actually 8 circles. He suddenly smiled and said, "This child, I'll take her." Everyone in the hall was stunned. Even if you want to snatch someone, You shouldn't snatch her so openly. This made the people of Tai Meng very embarrassed. It was supposed to be a private transaction, but Lei Xingfeng did not understand. He only knew that this girl had the same attributes as him, and her potential was relatively good. No matter which sect she was in, she would be a hot commodity. Lei Xingfeng did not care about this. Since he had decided, he would not let go. He said, Han Jiao, follow me. Han Jiao did not understand at all. Therefore, she had already decided that Lei Xingfeng was a senior expert. She did not have any objections and happily followed Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng came in front of Han Tian Chop. Because he was the leader of Tai Meng, he said, Brother Han, I'm sorry, but I'll take this girl. Ferran interrupted. Only this once. Don't do it again. Han Tian Chop hesitated for a while, then nodded and said, All right, Brother A Feng, you're making things difficult for me. Haha, but we'll talk about it later. It's not a big problem for you to take her in. But brother, you're too impatient. Xiangeluan did not speak until the two most important people of Tai Meng spoke. He then said, I'm sorry for making things difficult for the two of you. Don't worry, I won't let Tai Meng suffer. With his words, Han Tian Chop and Ferran heaved a sigh of relief. They would not offend a super expert like Xiangeluan for a disciple with good potential. Lei Xingfeng sat down and instructed a Tai Meng disciple to lead Han Jiao out and arrange her accommodation. Han Jiao was considered his subordinate, so she was no longer part of Tai Meng. He could only treat her as a guest. Countless people looked on enviously as Han Jiao went out. Being taken in by an expert was the best outcome. Han Jiao did not come alone. She had a whole family with her. Not only were her parents here, but there was also a large group of siblings. When Han Jiao went out, they immediately gathered around her. Lei Xingfeng knew that he was being a little reckless, but with his senior brother around, he did not mind. After all, he had already taken her in. He did not plan to take in many people. He planned to take in a few to test it out. If the results were good, he would take in more people in the future. If the results were not good, taking in a few people would not affect anything. He did not lack money to support people anyway. The test continued. This time, the people who came to take the test seemed to have good potential and aptitude. Soon, he found many of them were above average or below average. Whether it was Han Tian Chop or Ferran, they both relaxed. This was because the Tai Meng did not care about how many people they took in this test. What they cared about was how many talented people there were. This time, they had already discussed among themselves and decided to let Xiangeluan and the others choose. This was because Xiangeluan said that if he was satisfied, he would use Luan rings or Luan Yin rings to exchange. If there was a genius child, then whether it was in terms of attributes or aptitude, he would directly use Yin rings to exchange. Han Tian Chop was very much in need of Yin rings. If he had enough, he could quickly condense his 7th true ring body and become a mad true ring master. At that time, his position would be even more stable. But Yin rings were too hard to come by. They were not something that a true Ashen Seal master with a 9th true ring body could make. Only a true monarch or above could make them. And where could he find a true monarch or above? Arctic Harrier laughed. Brother Lei, since you haven't taken the test before, why don't you go up and try? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.